Good evening, everyone. Just before I hand over to the Town Mayor for tonight's meeting, I just want to remind everyone in the room that we are now live streaming onto YouTube. So we are politely requested that all participants wait until the have been invited to speak by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Once invited to speak, please place your contribution by stating your name. And there's a reason for that, to allow the public who are named watching on Zoom hear the councillor who's responding or talking in the meetings, and also to allow the microphone to go from someone who's got a deep voice that projects well to somebody who's more softly spoken. Yeah, so it says here that it will help the mics lock into the primary speaker and maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. If you are watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. If you're just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Zoom should have their mics muted. And I'll now hand over to our Town Mayor, John.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Councillor Carl.
Okay, so we'll note those. Declarations of interest? No? Okay. So did we receive any questions from councillors?
No. Public participation comes before.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm out of practice. Okay. Public participation.
I was right.
Yeah, no, you are. It's me. Public participation.
Thank you. You have to.
It should pick you up now.
Oh gosh, you can sit down and talk. Oh, I like it. Anyway, I just thought I'd come down to a live meeting actually, rather than having done the last couple on Zoom. It's really nice to be back actually, because believe it or not, it's over 2 years since I've sat in here at a full council meeting. I'm sure John remembers the last one he was at, before the pandemic, and that's the last time I was here. So yeah, it's really nice to be back. So I got really excited today because I thought, oh, the cafe's on the agenda, and I was going to come down and I was going to talk people through and eulogise about the cafe. And I'd also seen a strategic plan. It's a strategic plan, which is one of the other items on the agenda. Actually said for leisure and recreation, develop a cafe with suitable opening times and events. And I thought, oh, really exciting, that, isn't it? And then I read the report. And then I read the report and realised that actually there isn't a discussion tonight on the cafe. What there is a discussion from a business review working group meeting that took place on the 14th of February. I don't know how people are aware, I hope you can see this. There's no public agendas for business working groups, no agendas at all, no dates of meetings. So I read the minutes, but as a member of the public, I wouldn't have been able to attend it because it's a working group, and I wouldn't have been able to see even that the cafe was on the agenda. I think that's hiding behind closed doors. I don't think it's democratic at all. I think it's really wrong to have discussed the cafe behind a closed door meeting. That's about there were only 3 councillors at that meeting. It's not really that good, I don't think. Anyway, I was then coming to eulogise about the park until I saw that, because nobody can have walked through the park in the last 3 or 4 weeks without thinking, wow, it looks amazing. The daffodils are out, thousands of them. The crocus are out, again, absolutely beautiful. The shrubs are beginning to come in the sensory garden as well. But you've got that building at the end. I'm not talking about that with you. I'm talking about the pavilion. And I know it's sad, and I know it's hard to know what to do next with the building because the cafe wasn't that successful last year. There are reasons for that. But King George V is a destination park. It really is. A destination park. It's beautiful. You've got the splash pad there. You've got the new play equipment there. You've got the new sensory garden there. you've got your benches, you've got the river area, you have everything there except the one icing on the cake, which is the cafe. And I see that the business working group, all three of them, sort of basically said, well, we're open it this year. That might be the right decision. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be looking for that decision. But if you are going to make that decision, please think about the people of Melksham. And here I'm not talking about Melksham Town, I'm talking about Melksham. The 30,000 people that we have in Melksham and beyond, that actually want to come to that park and actually want to be able to have a drink. It will bring people in. This summer is going to be absolutely awful for an awful lot of families who will not get a holiday this year, who will not be able to go away because of the cost of living problems. Can we not offer them a cafe which actually is open and helping them to have an enjoyable summer in our park? Whether please listen to me. Because that is going to be so important for them. Please, when you look at this report, there's only a report which went to a meeting behind closed doors. Please look at it, decide whether or not you actually want to go along with these recommendations. And, I think it's a very hard decision you've got to take tonight, but be optimistic. Think about how important the park is to the wider Melksham community.
Thank you. It might scare you and me both to know that I agree 100% with every word you just said there.
John, you and I have often agreed, more times than we disagreed.
The cafe is a huge asset that we should be making far greater use of, and I hope that as we debate this later on the agenda, and I hope that you may stay and participate in the public participation at the start of that. But I hope that we do look at as many a set of options as possible to maximise this resource for our residents. We all know that something opening during COVID that was offering hospitality was always going to struggle. But we've moved on from that now, and I think that if we really want to make the most of that resource, we have to take the opportunity that's before us. So when we get to that item later, I hope we'll have a good and robust discussion looking at as many of the options as we can. Was there any other members of the public who wanted to speak before? I'm just looking at the screen in front of me in case there's anybody on Zoom desperately trying to find the button to press to make their screen show, but I think I've waffled long enough to give that opportunity. So thank you very much. We'll now return to the agenda. Thank you for picking up my mistake. And I think we're done questions from councillors, so we're on to item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of January 2022. So does anybody have any corrections to those minutes that they would like to the clerk?
I don't know if you want to take councillors first, I'll come back.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
Yes, Sue.
Sue, apologies, Sue.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the detailed income and expenditure report as at the 30th of November 2020.
Which page number were you on, Sue, just to help us all?
Page 3.
Page 3.
I raised a question at that meeting as to why the solar farms monies were not included in the earmarked reserves. The town clerk explained, following the practice relating to local government accounts, the solar farm monies would not be reallocated to the earmarked reserves until the end of the financial year, which I found, I couldn't take that on board. And this time, when we've got the earmarked reserves on page 17, the solar farm monies are there. You know, they're added on throughout the year as they come in. They're not added on at the end of the year. So I would just like that correction made, really.
But that's,
I can understand. There isn't
If you look at page 17, you look at page 17.
well, that is what it says in the minutes about this.
Yeah, they are in the earmark reserve and the solar farm. What happens is when they are put into the earmark reserve, they go into what's, so it shows how much you've had in that financial year, and then at the end of the year, they go into the earmark reserve, you know, they add it to the total. I never said they weren't in the earmark reserve, so the minutes are wrong in that respect as well, because they are in the earmark reserve.
And they are in the reserves, it's added in on the next ones as well. So I'd just like you to say that they should have been added in as they go along, because it's been done this time with the general ones. If you look at page 17, you see the earmark reserves over there.
Right, so we need a correction to this minute, so that this minute is accurately reflecting what everybody agrees was or was not said at the meeting. So,
well, it might have been said, but I still can't accept it because it.
No. So, what you've queried it.
Yeah.
The clerk saying to me that minute doesn't accurately reflect what she believes she said. You're saying that you didn't. So all I need is someone to tell me I wasn't present at the meeting. Somebody needs to tell me what was said so that we can ask council to vote on an amendment to the minutes.
Yeah.
So I need to know what was said so that the minutes can accurately reflect what was reported. I think you and Linda are agreeing that the minute is wrong.
The balance on the 1st of April 2021 was that much. In this financial year, 38,620 has been added. And what the question from Councillor Mortimer was, this figure here, why isn't that in there? So that is just showing what the town council has received in solar farm money. I said at the end of the year it would go into that. It's in the earmark reserve there, but it's just in a different place at the end of the year.
So that figure last year, that figure at the last meeting, what was that figure?
It would have been the same because we've only had one sum in the financial year. I took it up with the town council's accountant and I think he's now added into the
Right, so it wasn't there last time.
It was here, like it is now. Yeah. That's why I'm a bit confused. Like, that is the earmark reserve, so I would not have said that they were.
Let's have a look at what the papers had last time, because I'm very confused and we've got to make sure that the minutes properly. This was the meeting. Of course, I've not got them on my device because I wasn't. Have we got the papers for that one? Can we have access to the papers for that one? Could I ask, Patsy, would you be able to just help me get them on here? See if you can back keyboard. Can I ask you to just check that when we move on, and we can come back to this item, because otherwise we're just tying up delaying anything. But I think it's important to get that right because it's a significant issue. So Sue, we'll come back to approving the minutes in a minute. I just want to see the paper from last time so we can make sure we report properly. So let's go on to item.
There's something else.
Oh, sorry, what else is wrong with the minutes?
For some reason, the numbering has gone back to number 1, and you can't have that. They have to run consecutively. So I'd suggest that we make the amendment that Councillor Mortimer is asking for. We get the minute numbers correct and resolve tonight to make them, if it's in agreement, those alterations, and the minutes are signed at the next meeting or at a time for you to arrange to come in and do that.
Yeah, we can't sign them with an accurate minute. Right, well, Patsy just does some checks on that. Item 5 is Town Mayor's announcements.
Councillor Raynes, is there a programme for the evenings on?
A programme for the
Yeah, of the events, of how it's going to be organised. Like what happens on next?
Sorry, what are you talking about?
Programme of events for the evening.
We've got an agenda. Oh, civic. I wasn't talking about the civic reception.
You just said item 5.
Yeah.
To note the mayor's civic reception.
Okay, but it says Town Mayor's announcements, and I was just, so I'll come to that question in just a second. Okay. So Town Mayor's announcements. Just to be clear with everybody, of course, this is the last scheduled full council meeting before our annual meeting. At our annual meeting, beginning of May, I think, isn't it? We will, of course, be reappointing members to all of our committees and electing our mayor, deputy mayor, and chairs again. So it's really important people start thinking about what they would want to do. If you've got questions about what the committees do, I know that for a lot of members, you've been on board a year now. It's different than it was last year when it was all very, very fresh. But if there's any questions about what committees do, I know that the clerk would be more than happy to talk to members about that. I'm certainly not going to be putting myself forward again or allowing my name to go forward again for mayor next year. I'm taking a year out of everything. So we will be looking for people to come forward into new roles, and it would be really good to see some fresh blood coming forward. So there are opportunities there for people to step forward and take on new responsibilities come the next full council meeting. Now, with regard to the mayor's civic reception, Pat, it'll be following pretty much the normal process, which is pitch up, eat a meal, some entertainment, and the civic award winners presented. Where the thing that's going to be happening slightly differently is the civic award winners are going to be spread out a little bit during the entertainment, rather than doing it all in one chunk, to just make it a little bit sort of more of a flow on the evening. But other than that, I think it's pretty much same as what they normally are.
Right, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Patsy's not made it back yet, so let's just carry on down. Reports from unitary councillors. Phil.
That's awful. Yeah, so thanks very much, John. And just to say, I haven't spoken to you, it's lovely to see you back. Missed you, certainly at County Hall, I think. Okay, so yeah, just to give everyone a quick update. Now, most of you will know basically kind of what happened. Last time I had the council was end of January, with the budget meeting. So we also have an area report. There's a few bits and pieces that have been going on in the background as well. But just a quick update on those. It's probably a bit late. So, in terms of Wiltshire Council's budget, we increased the budget by 3% overall, 2% plus 1% for the annual social care levy. That was the biggest thing. It was a mammoth meeting, about 12 hours. And for those of us who got there slightly early, it was even longer. It was big, very big. But there were also some changes to particularly luncheon clubs, which will have a slight impact on Melksham. We do have a luncheon club, the Rainbow Club, I think it is, operates out of the
Riverside Club.
Riverside, yeah, of course. They will be slightly affected by this. Some conversations with them shortly afterwards, so essentially we're moving away from the old system of funding luncheon clubs, very uneven to say the least. There were some towns like Marlborough, for example, which received about 60,000, 65,000 annually in luncheon club support. And then there were towns like Melksham that only received 7,000, and there was others who didn't receive anything. So it's a very uneven patch. That funding has got the legacy of the district council days, which is why there's such a disparity. And unfortunately, new clubs couldn't sign into So we changed that system. We've got put in place a new framework so all luncheon clubs can apply to Wiltshire Council funding. So that should hopefully make that offer more, open to various organisations and will allow us to equalise support and funding more equitably around the county. It will also allow us to change the requirements for luncheon clubs to make sure there's certain quality controls within that as well. So, it depends how you want to look at that one, but I think it's quite a positive story, really. There's obviously parking charges, which actually took up about 6 hours of the debate, took the vast amount of time spent discussing parking. There's an increase going on in parking at 10 pence an hour. There are some changes in the ways in which charging is going to affect free badge holders, and I think possibly discussing that later on. I think that's coming up. And so we had that, so there were some big items there to discuss. It was pretty intense. And of course, it's worth bearing in mind that we increased our social care fund. So there's also significant increase in children's services too. So those crucial services going to support you. But moving on from that, then we also had an area board. Just quickly, I mean, most of you will be again familiar with the work of the Wiltshire Wildlife Trust and Clappers Brook. So I won't go into that in too much detail, but they've been working with us over at Wiltshire Council and speaking with officers there within the strategic assets and the commercial estates department. So there's a very positive project that's moving forward over at Clappers Brook. We also have an update regarding a significant tree planting scheme. Now, it is slightly outside the town council boundaries, down on Lower Ridge Road. They've got Alpaca Farm, which is just beyond the New Road. But there's going to be a very significant tree planting scheme down there, and just in the short term, they've got 7,000 trees they are planting. They are looking for volunteers. So I have instructed them to come and tap us up for support, and hopefully they'll be coming to us for some help with volunteers to plant those. They're working with lots of people in the community. We also gave out quite a few grants as well. And I know Louise is not here, but the group she's involved with about it, people see very significant what they can say. Yeah, that's Ramsey Club, and okay, it's funded for a different way, but there's a significant boost of funding there to support that. We'll stop there, was it?
Thank you, Phil. I'll just ask if any of our other Wiltshire councillors, so I've got Mike Sankey online and Jack, I forget your name, in the room. So have you got anything you want to add, Jack?
No, nothing from me, Chair. Phil's kind of covered it all. Just say that's, you're back and good to see you back. And I do excuse my coughing, everyone. I'm just recovering from COVID. So if I'm coughing away, I'm well past it. I'm negative. I'm not contagious. I'm just coughing away. So I do apologise.
As everyone runs out.
Yeah. But yeah, good to see you back.
Mike, I'm assuming because your camera's not come on, you've got nothing to say. To add, I should say, to what Phil has said, and I haven't. So thank you for that update. I don't need to say that. Let us go back then. But oh, sorry. So you had a question on the
Councillor Mortimer. There was some talk about there being a public consultation on the actual disabled parking. There was a newsletter come out and it's been deferred, isn't it? Because we won't have a public consultation before the 1st of April.
No. So basically, the decision was taken by the council to change the parking, but that will require a TRA, traffic regulation order. And when that goes out with a period of time for public consultation. So that has not been issued yet. So the changes won't be happening until the process is taking place, which I mean, about 2 months?
Yeah, 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months. Do you just want to flag?
When that consultation comes out, then the town council will be one of the consultees on that. So we will get notification through to the town hall. So at that point, I'm sure the clerk will make sure that all councillors are aware that that consultation process is taking place.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to add, John. In fact, you'll be familiar with this because I know you were involved in email correspondence as well. Regarding the parking over at the campus, even though the traffic regulation order again is going out for consultation to install, to put in charging for the campus, the intention is to, the council have to run the TRO so that they can do things like enforce parking in bays and issue tickets. The decision has been taken not to charge when the campus opens immediately, They're going to run that for several months and see how that goes, and see if people use that system, but see if people who are parking in there are using the campus, and just to make sure really that it's not people who would normally be using the town are parking at the campus, stopping campus users using the campus, exploiting the free parking, and make sure that all runs. If there's no sort of abuse of that system in place, then it will remain free.
Important to say that's not all day free parking, there will be time limited.
Yeah, it's free.
To stop people going there and parking for the day, but, okay. Okay, so let's go back then to this question from the minutes. I think looking at the two reports, I can see where the confusion is, because the report that came to the meeting that I can see here, that is dated the 31st of November, doesn't include the 38,000, my eyes aren't good enough, 620, is it? That is on this time's report. So I can see that that's where that's certainly what so the question in January was why that funding wasn't there. I can't answer what the answer was because I wasn't in the room. Others might be able to help me in terms of what we can record in the minutes. But I think the message that certainly the message the clerk's giving me now that it was because when this report was published, the end of November, the funding wasn't in, but it was by the time the meeting happened. So, but I can't speak to what the minute, but are you happy, Sue, that we amend the minute to remove the advice that's there, which even the clerk is telling me shouldn't be there because that's not what, yeah, wonderful. So with that in mind and correcting all of the minute numbers on those minutes, are you happy that I can come back to the town hall later in the week and sign the minutes as a true and accurate record, as long as that amendment is made and no other changes other than the minute numbers are done? Okay, I think I probably need to take that to the vote. All in favour? And that's unanimous. So, oh, can I have a seconder for that, please? Oh, there's about 7 of them at that end of the room there, so pick one. So let us move on then to the accounts, item 7. Now, all of these papers that we've got before us this evening have been taken to the Finance and Admin Committee, Finance and Performance Committee, sorry, and have been scrutinised there. I'm assured there are no fresh papers here tonight. So I'm hoping that we're not going to revisit things that have happened before, but soon.
On the finance meeting, sorry, Sue Mortimer. On the finance meeting Monday, 14th of March, we were asked to approve a list of payments from the Co-op Bank. I tried to raise the issue that there was no payments there, just receipts. We have 2 copies of the receipts and no payments. So I just want people to be aware that the finance committee has not authorised or agreed the payments for the Co-op Bank.
Right, okay. I wasn't at that meeting, I haven't seen papers for that meeting.
It's on the agenda.
Which paper is it and the ones in front of us today? As you say, didn't go to Finance and Admin. Can you give me a page number?
The payments, the Co-op payments.
Which page is it on?
It was on the agenda pack for.
So 7.1, are you saying? Agenda item 7.1.
Agenda pack for the 14th to the 32. It's page 17 to 19 was said to be the payment, but it's just a backstop report.
What would be really helpful, sir, is if you've got something like this as a query, to raise it in advance so that there's an opportunity for officers to, because if we've missed a report, we need to make sure we've got that. I can't.
I did try to raise it on the evening.
So are you saying one of the papers we've got before us tonight didn't go to Finance and Admin? But which paper are you telling us didn't go to finance and admin?
Payment for the. Come on, payment.
All of them, yeah.
Go to our website, just look them up.
So just to clarify, so is this pages 14 and 15 on the agenda package note?
That's the page numbers are quite difficult to comprehend what's going on.
So that's
great. Just having gone back to paperwork for the last finance and admin performance meeting, there is that not the payments in there? That's certainly payments from the bank account receipts. Right, okay. It's also receipts. That also says receipts. It's the same.
Yes.
No, that's not the payments you've got there. That's budget. Right, I think what I'm going to do, I don't want to spend the whole evening this evening trying to work this all out. I'm going to recommend we defer noting these, because we did say that they had to go through finance, admin and performance and be properly scrutinised before they came to full council. I'm also quite concerned, to be honest with you, that the page numbers in the agenda don't tally to the page numbers that are in the agenda pack. So it's quite hard to work out. I'm pages 13 to 16 are meant to be petty cash, but it's the cooperative bank account according to this. So there is no reason why we have to note all of this tonight. I would rather it was taken away, put together properly and brought back. Does anyone object to me proposing that from the chair? Okay, so I'm going to propose we defer finance and the whole of item 7 effectively, and bring that back to the next meeting. We can bring it with months 11 and if necessary 12. So can I have a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Jackie. All those in favour? Okay, right. Let us move on then to committee minutes. So we've got draft minutes of the Asset Management and Amenities Committee being held on the 14th of February 2022. We're asked to approve the following recommendation, which was to instruct officers to produce a donate a bench policy for approval by full council. There's not a lot of point of us approving that they do that, because it's the next item on the agenda to approve the policy. Which is good, because we should be. So shall we go straight to 8.2? Hopefully page 37 in your agenda pack, which is a bench sponsorship policy. Officers, does anybody want to introduce this to us, or? Okay, so nobody wants to talk us through it. Any questions from members, please, on this? Tom.
Councillor Price, thank you, Chair. I do have a few questions, so bear with me, please. So
So if you're looking at the policy, they said that we should definitely should be doing it for memorial bench. 2.5, it states that obviously these are not memorial gardens and we should have no additional mementos, which obviously we need to make sure the bench is available for the whole of the public. It can't be cluttered with flowers and things like that. But I do wonder, because I feel we're going more towards benches rather than gravestones and that kind of thing these days. It's not really very realistic. So we have possibly ready benches, obviously you have some kind of foundation for the bench, possibly a small vase that's actually incorporated into the memorial so that loved ones can put a flower down, a bunch of flowers for their past loved ones without it being too cluttered around the bench. That's just something, yeah, as you would do in a gravestone. There's something to bear in mind. That one.
Yep. Okay. I think it was Simon first and then Sappy.
Thank you. Councillor Crandall. Yeah, I think Councillor Price raised a really good point. If people want to donate a bench for in memory of a lost loved one, it might be seen as a bit insensitive for us, the council, to be removing the flowers. It'd be a relatively small change to our policy to have such a thing. One point I did want to ask about this is
Simon, just before we introduce a new topic, can we just talk through it, because I think there's others who weren't indicating for the flowers. Can I just ask that we talk through the flowers one first, and then I'll come back to.
Okay, so it was just for brevity.
Yeah, no, it's just because I can see I don't want something to get lost, and I certainly wanted to speak to the flowers one. Did anyone else want to? I mean, I would agree with you, Tom, but I think we need to. It's about striking a balance. I think we need to have something there. We've got memorial bench for my mum down in West Bay, and on anniversaries we'll go down and tie some flowers to it. And we've got relatives down there who would then remove them later. You wouldn't want them there forever, but I think something to enable people to remember by. So I think if we can look at, I think what we need to have is some guidance in there, rules for want of a better word, I suppose, that says how memorials could be put onto a bench each year, so that we don't end up, yes, with people turning it into some horrendous, massive stuff that stops people getting close to it, but at the same time does enable memories. Sorry, so you coming in on flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seymour. Councillor Mortimer. I just thought if we had a limit that was just one bouquet or something like that, I just think that would be nice. Because you see them in Weymouth and they're quite often, you know, they're just tied to the side and they're left there 3 or 4 days and the council remove them if they're not taken back. They get them at a time where they can be removed. I think that would be quite useful.
I think if we ask our amenities team to work with the clerk to find the best way of being able to put something in there, whether it's in a concrete base, having something you could put a pot in or just stick some flowers in, or whether it's that you can tie something to the bench, but something that says after so many days they will be removed, I think it is enough. Yeah. No one else on that? Okay. Had you finished, Tom?
On that bit, yeah.
On that bit. I'll come back to you in a minute. Go on, Simon.
Yes, and just to finish on the flowers then, rather than one of the things you said, John, was that after a few days they'd be removed, and you spoke of rules. It might be nice if we asked the people who donated them there to remove it, say, for our amenities teams. Just something to think about as we draw up those rules. The point I wanted to speak to was point 2.3. One thing I rather admire about the benches around the town, if you walk through King George V Park, is that they have the town council crest on. And I think that looks very smart, and often remarked that it must be an addition that comes at increased expenditure to the town. But it is rather nice to brand the town together in this crest, which represents so many things. So would that be one thing that we'd be looking to have on the donated benches, this sort of common appearance, have the town council crest, or would it be a sort of our new logo, or what were we thinking around that? It's a common appearance.
that's up to members. I assume that it would be the same, if it was one, but and there's really money on the side, something else or to support that.
All is worth, I would like the continuation.
I agree with Simon, but I'll go to Sue and then to Jackie, who both put their hands up.
Councillor Martin, yeah, I was just going to say it'd be really nice if all the benches like throughout towns had the same, looked quite the same with the crest and everything.
Councillor Crundle, we've discussed this before when we were talking about what medium we were going to use for the benches, because somebody suggested like a plasticky thing, didn't they? And we brought up about best there, and we said we were going to keep it because it uniformed them and made them look smart.
Certainly, I know when we bought them on for my mum, we were given a wide range of one option to choose from. And I think that's right, actually, because I think it's quality control, it's maintenance and all the rest of it. So I think that's good. Okay, I'll come back to you, Tom, and then I'll come to you, Sue.
Councillor Price, thank you, Chair. Another thing I was looking into, if we could, it may be a different policy, maybe it's needs to be somewhere else. Please stop me if I go on. So look at memorial benches. We look at having memorial trees, writing tax to existing trees or planting a tree in someone's memory.
It's very interesting you say that, Tom, because when I went through the agenda with the clerk this morning, the one big issue I had with this policy as it stood was the opportunity to put a plaque on an existing bench and almost creating like a sort of two-tier system. Because once you run out of benches, people could put it on. You'd never get people complaining, I've got to buy a full bench rather than, or even now. But why we couldn't, if somebody wanted to do something that was a lower, and for some people would need to offer something that was a lower cost than a whole new bench, being able to put a plaque on a tree or something of that ilk could be another option. So I would love to see that explored as an option. I think that would be really good, but I was going to say that when we come to so we can bear that one next.
Yes.
Unless anyone else wants to come in on that, sorry. On the nope.
Sorry to use everyone's time. So the next one was obviously, and rightly so, I agree with this, 4.5, dedication to denoted benches for deceased people, not pets, which I agree with, in the category, that's where it should be. However, lots of people have pets, we're a country of pet lovers. Here we have a dog park, we have some kind of memorial policy within there, so we have benches there, could we have memorial benches there potentially? Dog bowls, a memorial area in the dog park, just investigate that. There's lots of people that their pets are their family, and I think it's important to give people that opportunity to.
Can I suggest we take that one away and explore some options and bring back?
Yeah.
Because I think there is, but I think the amenities team need to look at what's viable and feasible in there. And not only there, but I think Shernhold Fields as well.
Yeah.
I certainly walk my dog on Shernhold Field, dogs on Shernhold Fields 3 or 4 times a week, but I've never walked them in the dog walk in the park. So if I was going to get something, I think we could explore that. Yeah. Anything else?
And just one last thing, and I'm not sure with this. So under 2.6, the council accepts no liability for damage of the native benches. I understand that. I do wonder if we can look into possibly, I don't know what the financial implication of insuring the third would be, but it does seem like a bit of a shame that I could potentially spend £1,000 on a bench for another one, and then tomorrow someone vandalises it to a point of it needing to be removed and not having any cover that. If once that bench is gone, it's gone. We're not responsible, which I understand, but is there any way we can increase our insurance there to cover a damaged bench to that extent?
We'd have to have a look. There are some things that we have to have an excess on, but we can certainly ask the question. We might need to have an addition to the policy which just covers donated benches. I can't answer the question fully tonight.
I think we should investigate. I mean, certainly I know the one that we bought down at West Bay, we paid for it, but the condition on that was the minute we did it, we paid for it, the bench became the property of the council. It's not our bench, it's their bench, and if it gets damaged, they fix it, they repair it. We just effectively paid its installation. So I don't think we could be in a situation where a member of the public buys a bench and then says, that's my property. Because if it's their property on our land, you're getting into all sorts of trouble. We've got to own it when they give it to us, surely.
Yeah, you can, yeah. But this is, I've done research with other councils, that's all. It's sort of like, I've done a morph.
I wouldn't want, so like I said, if I bought a bench and it got destroyed, that would be an awful thing to happen to a memorial bench. And if we can try and claim some money back or find a way to fix it a bit cheaper, just if there isn't an option. But it's wrong.
Jackie?
Councillor Crandall, there was talk about using a wood-like substance, but it not actually being wood, so it would be more difficult to vandalise. That was one of the discussions that we had, and we didn't actually decide on what we were going with. We said we would discuss it further when we came to finalising the decision of the benches and stuff, just to make it so that it would be easier to maintain and stop vandalism.
Okay, thank you. Simon, sorry. Let's do Simon and I'll come back to you, sir.
Thank you. Just a point on 4.6. Also, just have just a slight amendment to say that at the end of the 10-year period, the council reserves the right for moral facts to remove and returns. Just there might be some instances where they don't necessarily have to be removed, or if heaven forbid someone died many years before their time, and 10 years on, they would still be I'm sure it just seems a bit.
10 years is remarkably short.
It is. It just might seem a bit insensitive for us to sort of measure that just for bench. There might, it might be that in 10 years it's going to be very taxing and to reserve that way. But again, as Councillor Howard said, it does seem a bit short to be sort of packing up and handing it back. So.
So then, Safi.
Well, I'm just going to echo, sorry, Councillor, I'm just going to echo what Jackie said about benches, and I think the ones we've got in the park are Arsenal.
They are that recycled plastic.
Yes, we can't.
But my thing was 4.6 of the plaques may contain the name of the person, the date of death only. A lot of the ones that I see in Weymouth, I enjoy reading why they are there.
Sometimes favourites fall or something like that. And I just think it would be nice for other people, because obviously they are the town's benches and other people will be sitting on them and looking at the messages. So I just think, some of the messages that I read there really make you smile. Just wondered whether we could have a bit more said on the plaque, really.
To add to it, there's a lovely one in West Bay that I wish I'd thought of, but someone else had done first, where it said, please sit here and have a good gossip. Joan loved to talk all day. So, yeah, I get that completely. Safi.
Councillor Raby, thank you, Chair. Just regarding this, we had also had various conversations around the Happy to Chat bench. Is this something we're going to look to try and include in this, or are we going to look at that as a separate agenda? So the idea of having a brightly coloured bench that would advertise the fact that people could sit and talk to total strangers and we're happy to talk. And that's something I feel very strongly I'd like to see us look at doing.
Graham.
Councillor Graham Ellis, that was something that I came up with, having seen that elsewhere. It was a Happy to Chat bench, as indeed we've seen in Weymouth, and I've seen in Salisbury since then as well. I've been awaiting the policy coming through so that we can find out what and how we can do it, because it is going to be a part of that.
So,
Councillor Monica, I think Melksham people are quite chatty anyway. I think if I see somebody sitting on the bench and say hello, and you say, do you mind if I sit here? And I get the whole idea of it, but I think it was the colour yellow I was a bit concerned with, because I know.
I'm going to cut across only because the item before us is a bench and donations policy.
Okay.
And the whole issue of whether we have happy to chat benches or not is a different item that's not on the agenda before us this evening. So we're not making a decision tonight whether we would have those benches or not. We can't make that decision, it's not on the agenda. So just for trying to contain things, I'll curtail that one. Has anyone else, I've got a suggestion I'd like to make, but I just want to check if anyone else has anything they would like to say on this policy before we decide what to do. Colin.
Jack, Councillor Goodhine. Just going back very briefly to the insurance issue, I think one important aspect is that the bench becomes a council bench that anybody can sit on. So it's in our interest for insurance to cover it so that it can be reinstated and maintained facilities we're providing. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that I think we've got a really good start on the policy here. Personally, I don't think this is quite in an adoptable state as it's before us this evening, because there's a number of issues that have come up that people have raised that I think are some potential challenges. The first one is the ownership of the bench. And I personally, I feel the policy should be that if people buy a bench, they donate it to the town, and from the minute that comes over, from installation effectively, it is our property. It is the town council's property. I can't see how that could practically work any other way. Are we going to say in 10 years' time we'll take the plaque off and you've got to take the bench away? So I think we can. I would suggest we amend it to do that. The two other things, I think it's two, coming out of the discussion that I've heard that people have been concerned about. I think we all agree about the common style, and that is there. 2.3 says that they all have a common appearance. I wonder if we do that even further and simply say the council will be responsible for the procurement, specification and procurement of any benches, toughen that up so that there is I know 2.4 kind of covers that off a little bit as well, but it just takes away. We've got the point about whether short-term memorial items that at the time of, and I take on your point, Simon, about asking people to remove them, but I think we all know that even when we ask people to remove them, the time will come when some people don't. I think the important thing that we do is we have something that anybody who's donated a bench receives when they first put it in, that says so many days after you've left something there, the council reserves the right to remove it. So that if our amenities guys did have to remove it, we're not going to get a complaint about you've taken my flowers away, if you get what I mean. But we would ask them to take them away within 5 days or something. But if they don't, then we reserve the right to remove it. The other one, which doesn't sit comfortably with me at all, is this 10 years thing. I mean, we spent a lot of money. This is a very selfish and personal thing, but we spent a lot of money buying a bench for my mum. Mum passed 11 years ago. I would be horrified if I went down to where we've got her memorial bench now and found that the plaque had been ripped off and it had someone else on it now. Absolutely horrified. I think that if someone's going to spend this sort of sum of money and put one in there, then that's it. That's there for. It's got to be there, in my opinion, for a couple of generations. These aren't cheap to put in. I don't think we're going to have 1,000 people knocking the door down tomorrow wanting to put in benches. But I do think that we've got to. I couldn't vote to approve this with a 10-year limit on it. I really couldn't. And very, very lastly, I promise you, I made the point about just the plaques earlier on, but there was, I'm a 4.5 and 4.6. 4.5, yes, we should only remember deceased people, that I agree with, and not pets, who've lived in the town in the last 4 years. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, because, for instance, I'm going to get personal again, and my mum's one. Mum went on holiday to West Bay. It was a childhood thing. It'd been her favourite place throughout her life, but she hasn't lived there, or she hadn't lived there. Well, she'd never lived there. She'd only ever been on holiday and stuff there, but it was the place. I don't think we can say that they have to have lived in the town. There'd be somebody who might have moved away, but their family say we'd like a memorial bench in Melksham because that was where they had their happiest times in their life, blah, blah, blah. So I'm unhappy with 4.5, and I take on board what Simon said about 4.6 altogether. That little inscription you can put on there, it probably means more than the name and the dates that you put on there. And I'd like to see an inscription possible. But Simon, you were sticking your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with you as well on 4.5. You live in the town. Perhaps we say they have to demonstrate some connection to the town. So, for example, your mum, that was her place where she went on holiday. Which I would assume that would be common sense. No one's going to want to. I mean, for example, I wouldn't want to be remembered by a bench in Trowbridge, a place I know.
Chance now,
I just think 4 years doesn't. So can we? Are we all in agreement that what I sort of surmise there is what we've talked about, and ask officers to take the policy away and to rejig it, taking that on board? I think that's been a really good discussion. I'm grateful for the starting point with the policy. And I think we needed that to be able to dig through it and to pull out the things that we've got. So I think that's a really positive conversation that we've had there, and we can take that forward. And that could go back to the next asset, couldn't it, if it's done in time? Otherwise, you can come back to the next full council. It has to come to full council to be adopted, I know, but it's an opportunity for people to, if there's any questions on the changes. How do you feel, folks? Are you happy to delegate to Asset to approve the full policy now that it's been here? I think what I'd say about that's fine, as long as we can make sure that all members are notified that it's going to that meeting, so that there's no chance of people feeling that they were. So I'm going to take a vote on that just so that we're all clear. So the proposal is to ask officers to make amendments as per the conversation that we've just had, and to bring a revised policy to the next possible meeting of asset management, who we delegate authority to adopt the policy on the council's behalf to. I'll propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Jackie. All those in favour, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Community Development Committee. So we've got the draft minutes of the Dev Committee held on the 7th of March.
We didn't receive the minutes of.
Asset management, do we have to vote to receive them? I thought we only do there on any resolutions. Okay, well, we'll receive them. Asset management, do you want to propose we receive those, Colin?
Yes.
And can I have a seconder for those? Claire, and all those in favour? There we go. Lovely. ComDev. So receive the draft minutes of ComDev meeting held on 7th of March 2022. We've got some recommendations here. That approval be granted by full council for Councillor Mortimer to become a member of the Melksham Carnival Committee. Well done, Sue. Thank you very much. Anybody have a problem with that? Lovely. That approval be granted by full council for the unused grant funding for party and... Now, okay, I did have a question on this one. The unused grant funding for Party in the Park 2021 and 21-22, totaling 6,000 to be used to fund the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration events. I've got no issue with the 6,000 being used for the Queen's Jubilee celebration event, but we can't say the unused funding from 2021 because that's already been recycled in the accounts. So, and I think almost with the 21-22 as well. So I'm going to propose that we amend that slightly and simply say that we take £6,000 from general reserves that reflects the funding that would have been used for Party in the Park in order to fund the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration events. And then we've got an attached programme of events, costs and officer time.
Yeah.
Which page is that on?
What page are the events on, Christy?
46 and 45.
Yeah, 45 and 46, yeah. So we've got a proposed agenda of events and activities here well, we don't need to authorise these, do we? We just note these because we delegate the funding to the committee to.
And also the resource required. Looking at the bunting, it was quite ambitious to try and do the whole town. And if you look at the time it's going to take our team to put up and put down, on reflection, we're wondering whether members would consider just in the marketplace, because it's the busy season for our team outdoors with grass cutting.
Have we asked the Christmas lights team if they'd be willing to support with putting the bunting up?
Yes.
And they're not?
No.
Simon, you're sticking your hand up.
I was going to speak to a different, if any councillors have any sort of solutions how we might get bunting, because I think it would be nice to have, I mean, that's sort of 2 kilometres the whole High Street. So I'll come back once councillors, if anyone's got any ideas, I want to speak to a different part.
Okay, Sackville.
Councillor Rady, thank you, Chair. I have had somebody contact me regarding the proposal in terms of shutting off the whole marketplace. Avon Bowls Club actually have their centenary this year, and they actually have a big bowls game on that same weekend because of being Jubilee. So they are very concerned about access to the Bowls Club, to be able to get into it on that particular day. This is going back to the part where we're shutting down access to vehicles.
This is the whole thing altogether.
Yeah, no, I know it's that, but it was raising a point that has come to me over the Jubilee celebrations. There is concern that we are shutting access to a Bowls Club. So, got teams coming from all over the country to play.
So this would close vehicular access through the marketplace. So they can't get through the marketplace to Bowls Club at the moment, can they?
We have access there, Keaton Gate.
Oh, right.
I can say it because Connor, my brother, plays bowls there, so I'm fully aware of what the setup is. But I have suggested they contact you, Linda, in terms of their concerns.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the detail in terms of the spend is for the town development committee, community development committee to do. We need to give them the money, but they have delegated powers in terms of. Is there specific officer time that you're wanting to say you want to put over to it?
I'm suggesting, or would like to suggest, that maybe we have a small working group and we have an action plan, and maybe councillors pledge some time that they might be able to give to some of the tasks, just to share the load.
But which will have to be done in conjunction with highways recs, so that would have to be, can't have volunteers at Gladys without the correct training and supervision. The platinum badges to the lamppost, that's fine, we can do that. And the photo exhibition, that's being done by someone else. The national shop bingo and shop window competition that's sort of like being overseen by myself. Obviously, we need a judging panel. The soul and disco night in the town hall. The
Morris is putting that on in the Assembly Hall. He's not being charged. That's coming out of the Jubilee celebrations with the caveat that it is free or very minimal charge so that as many of the public as possible can attend. And obviously the street party. I mean, I think members might need to make a decision on that if there's any doubt, or that's going to cause issues for another event that's going on. I mean, putting the road.
okay, forget
What about the 70s and 80s soul disco? That's not happening now. Thanks, Patsy. Applying for a road closure doesn't cost anything, and it is a consultation document, so it wouldn't just go through because the town council had applied for it. And residents in Cannon Square have asked if they can be on the application because they want to close Cannon Square for their sort of like street party in Cannon Square. We've said we're happy to do that. If it's going to be in conflict with something else that's going on, I don't know how members feel about.
Well, I think what we need to do is reach out and have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
I don't think that we can make decisions today, but that's what we've got officers for. That's what we've got a committee to do these events. The main thing we have to agree today is resource. That's what full council's about. So, Simon,
this is a question of resource. In the meeting, I thought we said that we would allocate the rest of the money for the children's entertainment in the park, the picnic.
Yeah.
But I can see there isn't a budget here to have like the slides of to do whichever it was that we were going to come through with. No, I mean I think it's important that we have an offering for children to remember it. So is that just an error in?
It's not forgotten, we just haven't got a cost yet, but we are trying to see if we can get it for free because of what the event is.
but you are £918 under budget at the moment as well. So
Just for the benefit of full council, one of the things that from memory, what I thought we'd agree is that the remainder of our budget would go to putting on something on the Sunday visual within the park. That's still the plan. No, it's coming down as under budget and then nothing for the children's entertainment. A pragmatic solution for the woods, for the bowls tournament, could we, something we could offer is that if they're parking in King Street, we could help them get their woods to the.
I think we'll just, if I might just part that and let Danny from Avon Bowls Club contact me. It's a little bit more complicated practice. It says 17 years, they have loads of stuff going on. So
this is also the Diamond Jubilee for the town.
they don't have loads of parking down there though, so they're going to have to work something out. But that's a conversation that we're not going to resolve in here this evening. So.
Councillor Mortimer, just a quickie, like up with bowls, could you not have the fair down the park, King George, the fair run by?
The fair's not available on Sunday, goods and some backgrounds.
I think the only thing from the I'm not picking up any discontent over assigning the £6,000 to this or with some officer time being spent on this. I think the only thing that I picked up that it might be worth us indicating on here in order to ensure you've got to press a button on the monitor. Is that we actually allocate some funding to children's entertainment now, recognising that that may change, but I could see, I understand your concern. It could disappear. That's it. You're done. It could disappear in the scheme of things, as there's other things that. So I don't know how much did we used to spend on when Active Trowbridge would come over and do the entertainment in the park when we used to do the fun days.
It's only happened a couple of times in my life here, so I'm not sure. It wasn't me that organised it. I think it was about 5.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I'm not sure. It's getting quite late in the day for booking these people now, but I would suggest that we need to put a hefty rack over there in order to have children's entertainment. So that Jack, you look.
I was just going to say maybe £800.
I was going to suggest we just put the 900 that's left there, to be honest with you, and have 12 pound kitty. Yeah.
I was just going to suggest that we put 1,000 over because we've got 180 million, 60 students just left.
That's very true.
Fine, good point. Are we all happy that we put pencil 1,000 in for the children's?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the motion that we're going to take on this is that we approve the £6,000 to be taken from general reserves, which is the equivalent of what we would have given on Party in the Park for the last 2 years, to help people understand the figure. We note the draft agenda of activities proposed by the Town Community Development Committee, and ask that an allocation of £1,000 is put against children's entertainment for the picnic in the park, and say good luck. And are we in agreement that we set up a little working group to make this all happen? Okay. So do you want me to ask for volunteers for that now? Okay, so let's do the resolution first so that we've got the working group and then we can ask for volunteers. So I'll propose all of that for the chair. It's seconded by Councillor Oatley. All those in favour, please. Okay, so that's unanimous. And now hopefully we'll see almost as many hands go up again as I ask for volunteers for people who will be on the working group to make this happen. So this is where you get a little bit like an auctioneer, isn't it? We've got AIDS, price, any other takers? Any increase? Colin, thank you very much. That's 3. 4 with 2. I think that's probably getting to an adequate number for making things happen. But of course, anybody else is welcome to get involved and support.
Make sure you know when we have meetings. But yeah, that 4 is quite nice.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to tag along?
Wonderful. Okay. Let us move on then. So we're going to have to. Can we take a second resolution, please, to note the minutes of the Community Development Committee and to approve Councillor Mortimer to become a member of the Carnival Committee as a Town Council representative. Yeah, those are the 2 things we didn't do. So proposed by Councillor Oatley, seconded by Councillor Quandell. It disappeared just now. You didn't touch it hard enough. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Economic Development and Planning Committee, we just need to note these minutes. So I will move from the chair to receive the minutes of the 3 meetings that have happened. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Raby. All those in favour? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Finance, Admin and Performance Committee to receive the draft minutes of the committee held on 14th of March. Do I have a proposer? Proposed by Councillor Raby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Oatley. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And those against? Okay. Staffing Committee. 8.6, receive the draft minutes of the Staffing Committee meeting held on 28th of February 2022. Could I have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Alford, I'll say seconded by Councillor Price. Could I see in favour? Anyone against?
I have a question.
You have a question?
Yeah. I read through it, and I'm not clear yet who is responsible, who's actually responsible for making the final decision when somebody's going to be dismissed. Is it the guild plan? Is it the clerk? Is it the line manager? Is it the mayor?
It's certainly not the mayor.
Well, who is it? Is my question, please.
It wasn't me in this instance either.
No, but I think the question from the member is that we've got an item on the agenda, I think, coming up to change our terms of reference for the staffing committee, but under the current system, the question, as I understand it, Pat, is who actually is responsible for making the decision?
It does depend on who it is, really. Give me an example. Senior management team would be the staffing committee.
Lower than that, possibly me or senior management team, or refer back to the staffing committee.
I'm not sure that I'm happy with that. I would prefer something a little bit more definite, laid out.
What would you prefer? Because actually we're coming on to, we've got the terms of reference for the staffing committee and the proposed changes to it that full council needs to adopt. So let's move on to that item. Obviously you'll have looked through the new terms of reference. So what in it are you unhappy with and would you like to change?
I'm not sure what I would like to change, but I would just like to see something a little bit more clear, that's all. I mean, I'm really not happy with it depends who it is.
It will, I mean, it's lower than senior management team. It would be senior management team stroke myself. Senior management team, it would be the staffing committee. I wouldn't deal with it. And me, it's obviously staffing committee.
All right then, well, can we have it laid out in the terms of reference then, please? If that's the best I'm going to get. I think Colin wants to ask a question.
Go on, Colin.
Councillor Goodman. Thank you, Chair. I thought we were going to get a summary of why the terms of reference are being changed and an explanation of those changes before it's finally adopted. I think that's what we agreed.
They were unanimously recommended to full council. I was asked to include the current terms of reference as a comparison. They haven't been sort of changed using the current terms of reference as a model, so it's more difficult to sort of like highlight what the changes are. So both sets have been put in the current terms of reference and the ones that were recommended by the staffing committee to full council tonight.
But I thought that we were going to get an explanation of why the terms of reference that we adopted back in September needed to be replaced. And as I say, some explanation of what those changes were exactly. Because it is difficult to compare to because the section numbers are different. So if members are happy without an explanation, then okay, we're going to make a decision on that basis. But I'm interested. I think on something as important as this, it's good that we all fully understand why there's a need to change these terms of reference.
I'll go to you very much. I saw Sue first.
Councillor Mortimer. Yeah, I think Colin makes a good point, and I wouldn't be comfortable agreeing to these when I don't know the reasons for the changes.
Right.
Councillor Ennis, yes, I'm thinking on a similar basis that what I'm seeing here is how one particular cog in the machine works. And I would like a description of the whole machine and how this cog and this modified cog is going to work in the machine as a whole.
Okay, Councillor Ames and then Councillor Price.
Can I propose that we defer it and for further discussion or for clearing up at a future date?
Well, I think the matter has been taken to the staffing committee. Whether we like it or not, they have recommended these to us. So I think that just to say we defer it, I think we need to, if we're going to reject what's before us, I think we need to give some guidance to go back so that whoever's got to redraft this would understand what it is we're asking them to do. I think if we just say we're deferring this item, we're not giving anyone any idea about what to do to resolve it. I think we've got to give some guidance to go with that. I've got Tom, then I'll come to you, Phil.
Councillor Price, thank you, Chair. Little bit confused, to be honest. A few people who were raising concerns actually agreed to bring this to council. I'm a little bit confused why it's being questioned now. I feel it's okay, it might not be the easiest thing in the world because it's numbered slightly differently, but we've had this agenda for long enough for us to look at the old term of the reference and the new term of the reference, making the distinction and work out the differences ourselves. We've had that power. I don't know why we need to have it completely written down for us. And the question of why we need to change it, well, in terms of the reference, going to change for several reasons. It's very clear the second one, that I think should adopt a lot more bulkier, got a lot more information, and just it's clearer in my opinion. Obviously, we can't decide what to do, but I am slightly confused why this is suddenly a bit of an issue.
Thank you, Phil.
Councillor Orford. I thought I was pretty happy with the proposals. Very comfortable with them. Only to say that I think I recall there was an issue before whereby disciplinary matters were being dealt with by the staffing committee, when what would have been more appropriate is to delegate that to the head of service, the paid head of service. So issues would come to staffing, which staffing is not really in a position to deal with. That makes sense. I mean, this is the head of paid service. So if I'm going off on a tangent, fire a question. But
No, I think you actually are highlighting the key differential between the old and new.
So the thing is, you have the head of service, which is Clark. It's her job to manage the staff. On the old terms, those issues were coming to the committee rather than being dealt with by the head of service. Now, the challenge with that is not only do you have a situation where you're undermining the ability of clerks to do their job, but you're also opening the council members up to quite a tricky area of employment law, which they don't necessarily have the experience for, and certainly aren't qualified to deal with. So those matters of staffing should sit with the clerk, and only when it's a senior position within the council would that then come back to the staffing committee, if that makes sense. So it's really about letting them be able to do the job. By dog and by itself. Probably the worst one.
Somebody else says that to me.
I could never step back.
No, somebody else, yeah.
Oh, it's John.
Can't remember.
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Goodhart. Yes, I voted to bring it to full council on the basis that everybody fully understood why we are changing the terms of reference. As I say, having adopted the previous ones as recently as September. But yes, I might find it difficult. I might have to abstain over this, I think. But that was why I felt it was such an important issue that it needed to come to full council so that everybody understood the difference and the reason for it.
Okay, I'm just going to make a comment on this. Obviously, I've not been around over the last 8 weeks, but what I was acutely aware of before I went off was that there was a query over the terms of reference that were adopted in September. I think the challenge here is that these are a new set of terms of reference that were presented to the committee to adopt and were adopted, and then we were changing them again, which was challenging. Now, the key issue in it, as I understand it, that has caused the concerns and introduced some real operational challenges is, as Phil was picking up on, is this whole matter about the 2.3 in the old terms of reference, which was to consider and bring to a final conclusion matters of grievance or discipline as determined by the policies contained in the employee handbook, which basically says that if a member of staff is going to be terminated, or indeed not even if they're going to be terminated, whatever happens at the end of a grievance or disciplinary procedure, it needs to go through the staffing committee. And the practicalities of that unfortunately became apparent all too soon. The new terms of reference kind of does cover that off, but what it doesn't do, and I take on board the point that Councillor Mortimer makes, is that what actually it does is effectively delegate everything to the clerk except for the employment of the clerk. So we were talking just now about senior management team, but that isn't really separated out in here, or those roles defined in here. And I think that maybe some clarity to that would be helpful. I certainly would be very unhappy to be voting through a policy that meant that our tier 2 managers, the next level down from the clerk, could be sacked by the clerk. Not that you're about to, and I'm sorry, but you know, in a manner without any reference back to members at all. But I do take on board that there are, it's introducing an unnecessary level of bureaucracy for people lower down in the food chain, for everything to do with that to need to come through a committee of councillors. I'm slightly worried, though, that we could end up in the same problem again fairly early on, and I apologise I didn't come to you in advance with these, but as you know, it's only today is my first day back doing town council stuff. But the final bullet point under staffing matters on page 68 actually says that the committee, oh no, sorry, that's under the delegation to town clerk. I will shut up on that point. So the only thing I would ask is for me to be able to support this one, we need to identify what makes up the senior management team and identify that all matters relating to senior management team would have to go through the staffing committee.
If that's a proposal, I'm happy to second that.
Yeah.
If you ask them to add it to.
Yeah, I mean, we're always, when we're approving these policies, we're not approving them for today. We're approving them for any point down the line. So we have to think about, you know, the worst possible thing that could happen. And it needs to be absolutely clear about where that authority does or does not sit. And I'm not sure that it does at the moment. So I think that we need is something that accompanies this, that identifies what posts form the senior management team. And we need to explicitly say on the delegation to the town clerk that all of the points delegated to the town clerk are exclusive of the senior management team. And then I think we've covered that off. Are people happy with that as a... So if I'm proposing that, you have to second that, Phil, fine. Anybody else wish to speak to this? So subject to those amendments, are we happy to adopt the new version of the staffing policy? All those in favour? Okay, I think I need you to count on this. Okay, all those against? And any abstentions? 4 abstentions. Okay, thank you very much, folks. Let us move on then to working group notes, business review working group. So we've got some draft notes from the business review working group. Yes, so we've got this report back on the Cricketers Cafe. Let's take that one first and then do the Assembly Hall afterwards. So, Cricketers Cafe, which I think is going to be about page 73 or something, isn't it? You got 75. Okay, so does anybody wish to? Oh, sorry. In fact, I'm going to give the opportunity because I did say we'd come back for public participation, which we'd always take at the beginning of an item. So, if you wanted to come back at all on the cafe again and say anything else.
Half an hour of this council, absolutely not. I really think no. Seriously, everybody knows.
Can I just suspend standing orders? I'm being told off.
Apologies.
Okay, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Carry on.
Everybody knows my passion, what I want to see in the park. My passion is the passion of lunch, I think. The number of happy people that we had in the bar in the summer because the cafe was open. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than seeing the Cricketers Cafe boarded up. I get a bit worried when I hear from town council employees, I'm not going to name anybody, that the Cricketers Cafe is going to be closed all this summer, and that's it. And I'm thinking, that's interesting, because as far as I know, the council haven't even discussed it. Then I discovered that they had actually discussed it behind closed doors, and I find that really, really very sad that these things happen behind closed doors. We have a fantastic park. We have the most amazing park. Let's use it efficiently. I think it should be a destination cafe. That is not going to happen this year. I understand that. But please don't put anything there. I mean, just put, what I want to see is something there rather than nothing, because you are going to have to work really hard to get somebody in order to do a destination cafe. I see that on the same day as we opened the cafe last year, the Melton Pub Cafe opened up at the railway station. It's thriving. And I know why that is. It's because the right person came in who had a vision, and that's what you need. You need time to do that. It's March. You're supposed to be opening in a few weeks' time. That's not going to happen. But, think about the fact that you need something there, even if it's a trailer, which, while you look for other options. Thank you, John.
Thank you. So I'll reimpose standing orders again. And Colin, you've got your hand up to start us off.
Yes, can I ask how things were opened up to anybody coming forward with ideas? Because there are very strong feelings and opinions around, and I think one option that I couldn't possibly support was mothballing it. Something needs to be done. But has it been opened up and publicised well enough that we are looking for suggestions? Because I feel that we need someone with a vision behind us, and I'm not aware of how openly people have been invited to contribute ideas.
Can any officers advise Colin have an answer to that question?
I think the report reflects that we should do a SWOT analysis and do some consultation with the public.
Okay. I did have Tom first, then Phil, and then I'll come to you, Graham. Tom.
Yeah, Councillor Price, thank you, Chair. I have to echo Adrian's thoughts, as you know, I think it's a perfect area for a cafe. Tweak around the open hours, see what else we can get, but we certainly need to get the right person for the job. I think it's the best idea to get someone to lease it out and get someone else to run it. I don't think it's worth us even attempting to do that. It'd be a nice constant income for us as well if we're leasing it out and we don't really have the risk there. But someone who has a real passion who can really get this to work. At this stage, we want to get it as quickly as possible, something in a week or a month. But I would suggest that we pay the upfront, £25,000 to get it functionally working. We can get it in a kitchen in there and actually get it running. Yeah, I think it'd be a good potential business, but yeah, we should stay away from it well. We don't want to start competing with other cafes around Melksham as the council, which should certainly be a nice business for a resident, to be an earner for them, and give it a park somewhere or something else for people to do in the park. And look at that, you could expand the park even. Have some more picnic benches, and we want to increase the footfall in the park as well going forward. So it could turn into a wonderful thing there, but I think it's really important we get this moving.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, so I was at the meeting when we discussed this, and so it's not a business review group. And the challenge we have with this facility is to get it up to the bare minimum standards is going to cost somewhere in the region of £25,000. And even when we spend that, we don't know what's going to come after. Now we know, we just mentioned it before, that the Best Ever Brownie Company decided not to take it on. They didn't feel as if they could make it work. Now, there may be other companies that could potentially make it work. But the challenge is if we do decide on this £25,000, at what point is that going to be deliverable? Then we have to go and get someone in to run it. Now, that's going to take a lot longer than the next 2, 3, possibly even 3 to 4 months. We may be nowhere close to actually getting someone in by the time we get to August. Well, by which point we're looking at the end of the season and nobody's going to want to take it on for the winter. So then that takes us to the position, well, do we run it ourselves? And if we run it ourselves, we are going to be putting a lot of money into this facility with no idea. I mean, thanks for anyone, but we don't have a huge amount of experience in making a lot of money on cafes. There are a number of cafes around the town. The park is a wonderful facility, and I know I use it very regularly in my young family. We all go there. But there are other cafes, and we often go along to Costa or the other Italian in the Waitrose or wherever, get Waitrose, pick up a piece of wine, go back to the park, and make a sort of, a bit of a day of it. And we do that. But we don't need, as a council, to spend thousands of pounds in the short term. It's much more sensible if we work out what kind of facility we want to run, or what kind of facility we want there, and then go about looking at how much that would cost to deliver. But going into it and spending lots of money with no idea what we're getting ourselves into doesn't seem like a particularly sensible or sustainable way forward. So there was talk, and this was a potential solution, is to look at making a space available for a private sort of, they come along, run out of a caravan, and whether we'd look to them to pay us a fee for taking the pitch and running that as a business in that facility, whilst we carry out a consultation and work out what we want to do as a town before we commit significant sums that are not budgeted for and with no guaranteed outcome this year. So that was thinking on that one, which is why it's come to this one, obviously, and it's for council to make this decision. But that sort of kind of explains the backdrop to that view. However, there are others.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Graham, you're next.
Councillor Gomez, I must confess to being disappointed to see that here we are in March talking about something for this summer, and we're talking about carrying out a public consultation and market research exercise, which leaves us with nothing for this summer. I would agree with Councillor Alford that it would be dangerous for us to invest in a considerable amount of money in something that's going to take us potentially for a number of years, or potentially not do so until fully investigated. But I would really look to say, would there be something that we could do for this year with an intention of doing something there, even if it's not actually within the building, so that we can do it. Whether that is somebody paying us for a pitch, whether that is just us literally giving a pitch to somebody free of charge, or even subsidising to a slight extent, I don't know, but to get that done. But it does seem that we have, well, here we are on the 21st of March, looking at a report of a meeting from the 14th of February that has only just come through to light and into the public 1 week ago when it was published in the agenda. So I honestly think that we owe it to the town people to look to be doing something and providing something. And just in terms of running cafes and whatever, just a slight correction to fact here, I've actually run a cafe in Melksham.
Thank you, Graham. Colin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Goodhart. I accept what Councillor Orford said about investing risking the investment of 25,000. But I'm not sure I agree that we are in a position to decide what we want to see there, other than a strong feeling that it ought to be a destination and it ought to be part of making the park a destination. And that's why I think that we should be putting out an invitation to people that do know about running places like this and would be prepared to come up with plans as to what could be done with it to make it that destination. Because whatever goes on there will never survive on just people using the park. It needs to be somewhere where people want to actually go. And we've got hundreds of new houses and access to it is very, very easy. We just need the right mind on it to come up with ideas and make suggestions to us, and then perhaps lead to a commitment. Now that will take a bit of time. We should have been there several months ago, I think. But in the meantime, yes, we need to do something in between. So I think there are two issues there. There needs to be slightly longer term and creating something, and I quote Alice Park in Bath as a classic case of building something that becomes a destination. But yes, in the meantime, let's start using it in some way.
Thank you. Pat.
Councillor Ames, I agree with what Colin has said. I would like to see something happening there. I think to have a park and an empty building boarded up, it's just making us look foolish. We should be opening it, even if it only serves teas, coffees, ice creams. There should be something there. I don't know what the state of the kitchen is, how much there needs to be done in it, but it was being used last year, so I'm assuming that it would pass health and safety. If not, then spend a bit of money to get it that far. There's no need to spend £25,000 on it this year, not knowing what the reception is going to be. But we need to dip our toe in the water and find out. And to have it open for a limited number of items on the menu, just so that people know it's there. And we can collect feedback and see what the uptake is and then take it from there. But I think we need to have something there. And having a trailer of some sort in the park is a poor second, but I would accept it as a very, very last resort. But I would much prefer us to open the pavilion and have our own little cafe in the park. As for whether we hire somebody to do it or a company, that needs some discussion, but we need something, please.
Thank you, Pat. Jack.
Yeah, Councillor Eddie, thank you, Chair. So I was one of those members present at that meeting. And there's no secret that anyone who I've spoken to about the cafe knows how I feel about the cafe and want to see it open as beautiful as my vision is, and that was what the option that was put forward at this meeting was my sub option was to back up the option one in the report to run it in house, and I come up with this beautiful sort of idea, and briefly Phil and Claire looked at me like, well, okay, we need to come back into the real world chat, and this a SWOT analysis of public consultation was the way that we decided to go. Actually, we've got this building, let's work out what it needs to be done with it, what does the public want with it, and how much money does it need to spend, etc. What it does say also is that we do recognise that there needs to be a temporary solution for 2022, and that is actually on the motion that's come forward today, is that members are requested to decide what form of temporary solution they would like. Again, everyone Pat said, I don't know what the building is like, whether we have something inside, but a temporary van outside would probably be my preferred option, because I don't know what the inside is like. But yeah, that's what I had to say.
Okay, I've got a whole queue of people to speak now, so I've got Jackie, then Safi, then Tom, then Sue.
Thanks, Wonderful. I'm not against having a cafe open. I mean, I use the park all the time. I would never use a cafe in that thing. I'm just concerned that this is not our money, it's the Melcham's money. And if we're going to have something there, let's have something that works, not something that we're just going to be throwing money at and it's not going to work. Let's take our time, find out what's going to work and open that. If people want a cafe, then let's go for that. But let's take our time and find out what we can make work. There's no good point of throwing good money after bad.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Safi.
Councillor Rayleigh, would it be possible, I mean, we are in very different times, 2022 to where we were trying to get somebody to take a cafe on in 2021. You know, we've just come out of that other, second, third big lockdown that we've been in. And we may find that if we reach out to local businesses, local cafes, there might be more of an appetite. Somebody might want to actually get involved. And then maybe we can invite them along to have a look. Could they work with the facilities that are there? What would we need to do in terms of small scale, not over budgeting things that we could spend on to get the cafe up and running? I just think it'd be worthwhile reaching out to other businesses within town in case they decide it's actually something they would like to explore with us.
Okay, thank you, Safi. Tom.
Thank you, Councillor Price. So yeah, it says it's going to be 25 grand to get it to the health and safety standard that's expected. Can it, for those of you that know it, can it technically open tomorrow? Can it run? What is needed to be spent for it just to open the doors? Is it available right now? Do we need to spend 5 grand, 10 grand, or 25 grand? What we must spend before it opens up? And if anyone can answer that.
Are you in a position to advise us on that?
Currently, we've got no hot water in the building. I'm awaiting the third plumbing quote to replace the mega flows that exist that supply the hot water. Quotes are coming in between 2.5 and 3 grand for that. So, and the ramification is when you've got a catering facility, you need to supply toilets. Without hot water, you can't open the facility. So, that's that one. The Best Ever Brownie company managed to operate last year because largely they weren't actually cooking anything. They used pre-packaged goods. So it was just moving stuff out of freezers and fridges and into customers' hands. So they didn't actually prepare anything. So if we were to have a fully working cafe whereby there was food prep, and let's say they were making paninis or toasties or something like that, you would need to have that kind of expenditure. And I believe 25 grand is realistic.
So yeah, for 25 grand to do any cooking in there, get away with potentially 3 grand. I mean, just to open it up, open the doors, and have someone in there. And I would just say, so this £25,000, obviously it's a lot of money. But if we plan on opening at any point, it needs to be spent regardless. So I would just bear in mind, it may still be an idea to think about. It's going to be spent at some point anyway. And so I wouldn't want to take it over soon, and we could fit that cost in. Just something to bear in mind. It's not like it's going to be 25 grand wasted if it's going to be £25,000 next year as well. And also the actual idea of the pitch idea to pack it open. That is very good. Second, a plan B.
Thank you, Tom. So,
Councillor Mortimer. I see it more as being like a community cafe where you don't need to have all these meals and free money and like that. I think the people that go to the park, they're not the people that have got money to spend in cafes. A lot of them take their own sandwiches and juice. I've seen them up there. But I think what would be good if you could offer like tea, sandwiches, cakes, or something like that, which I think you could probably do, quite soon. You wouldn't need to go to the expense of having all the cookers and that put in. Something like perhaps what the company like the Brownie Company, just bring food in. I'm also disappointed that before the end of last year we spoke about opening about temporary until something permanent happened to it with the park-run, and I think that was a voluntary thing, but park-run. But I think also a lot of our park-runners, they go over to get big butties and on afterwards, and I think there's a market for that Saturday and the Sunday when people are there to have it open. And I'm really disappointed that the budget we got passed, is not materialised really.
from the budget.
Definitely passed, so we could have the cafes you use temporarily.
Oh, right, yes.
Thanks. I won't say long then. We should say it's quite interesting because one of the challenges here, I think it's probably been identified tonight, and that's there's several of us all with very different competing views on what we're supposed to be doing here. And the problem is, if we spend 25,000 on bringing, putting 3,000 aside, but if we spend 25,000 on what we think we need, and then in order to get into a standard necessary for a private company to come in, we actually have to refurbish it and do a significantly different job, then that 25,000 we spent is lost, because we've then got to spend that much more. So we can't just build around that 25,000. We have to refurbish the whole thing to make it appropriate for that business in order to operate functionally. And within this room of whatever thought, we've got 13, 14 councils, we've already got several different competing views on what can be done. We cannot run this by committee. So for me, I think the way forward on this is actually just to say, right, okay, we need to come up with a unified view on what we want for this facility and then pursue that. But we need to come to that unified position on what we feel would work based on the evidence that we need to go out and get from people within the town and wider research. Let's look at what works and let's pursue that route. But in the meantime, we desperately want a facility, so I think we should, I suppose, do you need a proposal at this point on something? Because if so, I would be happy to propose that we pursue the consultation, the research, decide what we want, and then discuss it within an appropriate committee to come to a decision on what route we want to go down and what's financially right. But in the meantime, we look for an external catering company to come in and have run something from potentially a caravan in the meantime.
Okay, so we've got a proposal from Phil there. I'm going to have my say now, and I'm going to get myself into trouble because I, frankly, am embarrassed that we're talking about this no further forward than we were certainly 7 months ago when we knew that the Brownie Company weren't going to be remaining. But to be honest with that, and I hope Adrian you'll agree on this, than we were years ago when we were talking about the splash pad going in there, we had the volunteers running the cafe, we were talking about how we had to make the cricketers something, and this council has talked and talked and talked and talked about what it does with this cafe, and it has done nothing. And we are again now 2 weeks from the season starting again with nothing in place about how we're going to deal with this. I cannot comprehend how we're at this point now when we knew in September that we were going to have to sort something out. I'm horrified and I'm embarrassed as the mayor that we're going to be asking our public to utilise our park that we've invested so heavily in and not have a basic service in there that we could have put in and should have put in by now. And it won't be there, and I can see what's going to happen. And I understand the thinking behind your motion, Phil. I'm not even sure if there's an alternative to your motion, but what your motion is that we go away and pontificate on this again for God knows how much more time without actually moving forward and without actually delivering anything for our residents. And Jackie, you made the point that it's our residents' money. Okay, yes, it is our residents' money, but how much is it costing our residents for us to do nothing? How much is it costing our residents for us to hold that building there empty, unused, without anything happening there? And no, they're not going to be bringing their own refreshments to the park. They're not bringing that, sorry, they are going to be bringing their own refreshments to the park. They've got to bring their own refreshments to the park. There's no other option for them. If we had a decent cafe running there, then they would be, you can't look at it and say that, when we were looking at that park, we went and looked at one in Bicester, which is very similar to our park, that has a thriving cafe operating there. We went and looked at the park in Devizes, the name I always forget. Hill One. Okay, fantastic cafe run there by the council, doing a grand job. Okay, what we've got is a building that hasn't seen really good maintenance in a long time. You're never going to make anything successful there unless you invest in it. Whether we run the joint or whether someone else runs the joint, we've got to invest in it. So my ask of the council is, if we are going to have another delaying tactic put in place on what we do at the park by saying we're going to end up with some god-awful caravan selling sweaty burgers for the summer or whatever, okay, can we please actually put some money into getting people who know what they're talking about to come in, put together some plans, get some architects in or a consultant in who knows what they're talking about to come in and put together some proper plans and proposals for that hall, for that pavilion. So we can actually look at what true options are available for us. Because otherwise in 12 months' time, there'll be some other poor sod sat in this chair here, you'll be having the same debate again, and we'll all be talking about how we don't want to spend money on risking something because we don't know what the demand will be, we don't know what the uptake will be. We need to do a SWOT analysis, we need to go and open a survey with Mrs. Bloggins down the road, whatever, but we won't have actually done anything. We need to do something. So I'd like to suggest a slight change to your proposal, Phil, which is actually that whatever temporary thing has to go in for this year has to go in for this year. We're not going to get it open, even if we spent the 25 grand tomorrow, Tom, which in a sense I ideally wish we would. We still wouldn't be ready to open for 3 months, and then we don't know who would operate it. So this year's damned, but let's not delay getting somebody in. Let's appoint somebody now. Let's put the money aside, take it out of wherever, to appoint somebody now so that this summer, when there's people at the park, those consultants coming up with the ideas about what we could do with it can be talking to real people who are using that facility. They can bring a report back to this council towards the end of the summer. Decisions can be made before the autumn, and we can actually look to having a proper solution in place for next year. Because otherwise, mark my words, and Adrian, I suspect you'll agree with me on this, because we've had the conversation in this chamber, God knows how many times, we'll just be having the same conversation in 12 months, and then 12 months after that, and 12 months after that.
I 100% agree with you, John, but I would also ask that please, can this be done in open sessions, not behind closed doors? I am absolutely horrified But the fact that it went to a meeting where there's no agenda published.
Point taken, we've not. Point is
Sorry.
taken. Colin and then Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Goodham.
I support what John's saying. I would just add to that that I would really like to see that whoever's involved has some expertise in the field. That we do have a longer term plan, but what we do immediately to get something moving, which I agree is really important. But anything we do bearing in mind that when the expert puts the plan, or experts put the plan together, that we don't want to have to make any changes to what's been done. So we need to do enough to get it running to start with and make sure that what we do can then be built on to the sort of specification that somebody that knows the business, that knows what we're talking about, can actually then work to create something that people want to come to. And I don't think we need to make sure that we don't base it on just part use. We do need to bear in mind that what we can do with and what would really work there is something that people want to go to regardless of the park. The park is a bonus.
And it will just add to the attraction of the whole thing. So I would say get people in that know the business, know the sort of thing we're looking for, and can contribute expertise.
Simon.
Councillor Brundle, to say, Councillor, really glad to have you back. But amongst all of that, I think you're pushing against an open door here. I think we all share in your anger and frustration. And in some of the points, I mean, I don't really think Councillor Morton was saying that people would, irrespective of the cafe being there, bring their own sandwiches. So just to be clear, you're in favour of the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Alford, with the exception that we should give a fixed budget to the consultation. Is that to be clear on what we're doing now? Because I share in your anger too. I think everyone around this table is embarrassed that we can got this far. Councillor Morton raised the point that we had a motion that passed through this council to have contributors come in the interim to do things on the park runs, and we're letting the people of this town down now. So is that what we're voting on? Are we saying we're going to put a budget for this? Because I know in the report it said $250,000. Being perfectly frank, I have no idea how much will this cost. What do we don't have £250,000 at the bank. So what are we voting on?
Well, my proposal would be to take that to a point where we can move on. Phil has made a recommendation that we do whatever we can to get something open this year, and he was suggesting we take it away we take it away. What I'm saying is, whilst we're not going to be able to achieve any more this year than what Phil was recommending. So yes, I'm supporting the solution for we've just got to do something to get something there this year. But what I'm saying is, rather than just saying, let's take this away and talk about it, okay, we can do things. We can make decisions today about how we take this forward. We've got, for instance, MVB, the landscape architects who help us put together the master plan for the park. They did all the consultation work for the park. We could be talking to them about saying,
I have already spoken.
Yeah, here's a facility. Well, you've spoken to how much would it cost for them to put us together a plan?
$2,500.
Okay, so we could be putting a budget in there now to say, let's get professionals to put together some recommendations about what the next step could be and bring that back to the next meeting. Put timelines on this and actually set a timeline that says by the end of the summer, we need a definitive plan definitive plan about what the way forward is. Whether that is that we bring someone else in to run it, whether we run it. I think if we're going to bring someone else in to run it, we might need to do refurbishment work on that building, whether we like it or not, before they have it, unless we were willing to give them a very long agreement in place, because the investment that would be required would be significant. We've got to discover all of this stuff. We've just got to get on and do it. And if it's £2.5 grand, I'm being told by the clerk for the architects who've already been doing the whole project to come in and do that piece of work, I know it will go over that. So I'm going to add on to if you'll accept it as a friendly amendment on your proposal, Phil, that we actually allocate a budget of up to £5,000 from the major projects reserve, which is what this is, in order to be able to instruct the architects who are already working on the whole project to be able to undertake the necessary works to come up with some costed proposals for solutions with regards to the pavilion and a cafe in the park.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to accept that. Can we have a timeline as well, so it is done this year, so we can look at moving forward? We do need
I've got the quote, it went to the business review work group, the member from NDB. I've had project managers out and I've had NDB, and that's what they've quoted.
So if we talked about, I see everyone's hands up, but let's just make sure we understand what we're going to, because we're going to be clear what we're going to be asking for. If we said that we wanted, I'm not sure if the May meeting would be realistic. What would this normally go to? Asset management, or would it come to straight to here?
It would come to council, because council has got the decision-making body for spending earmark reserves. So your major projects reserve is an earmark reserve.
Well, actually, I'm going to make a suggestion. Whoever takes over from me can pick up the pieces on it. That what we actually say is that we ask for this to go off, and we ask for something to come back by June, which gives them time, and actually that we hold a special meeting, public meeting, to talk about this, because it's 9:10 now, and we're not getting close to where we should be on the agenda. This is a big item. It will be a big item when it comes back with that recommendation. I suggest we have a special meeting to discuss it. And I am keen to move things on, because it is 9:10. But I've got Simon, then I've got Claire, and I have Pat.
Thank you, Joan. Councillor Crandall. I completely agree with your suggestion of a timeline, so we can nail our feet to the mast on this and actually get something done. Forgive me, I've not been a councillor too long, and I'm not too sort of anything how we would go about this. But Councillor Goodhine and Councillor Raby made some good points about reaching out to businesses in the community as to what businesses locally would want to take us on and what to do with it. I might be completely mistaken, but would it be prudent to do that sort of before or concurrently with the architects coming in? Because if they're making it into a sort of a lounge sort of cafe area, and the business that wants to take it over is actually more of a cafe / shopish sort of thing, then we'd be spending money getting designs to refurbish it to something that might not be suitable. I haven't done stuff like this, but it just, to me, it seems getting the architects in to change it into something before we know the interest. I completely agree with having some sort of set schedule, and actually I think you're right to involve the money behind this. I just don't know if you've got your experience than I am.
Yes. Just before I bring Claire and Pat in, we wouldn't be talking about, in my opinion, what comes to us in June as being like the REBA level 3 scale drawings of what the final thing would be doing. One of the things that they would be doing is actually going out and doing consultative work, talking to people about what would be wanted, but doing a proper study on it with somebody who understands what the questions to ask are, understands how that can be interpreted into viable options that can be brought forward. So what will come back to us in June wouldn't be a final, here's what the new thing would look like. It might have some sketch suggestions of a couple of ideas, but it will be coming back saying, and I would be expecting there to be discussions with businesses as part of that process. That's part of what they would do. When they did the consultation for the master plan for the park, and we're not talking about anything as in depth as that again maybe, but that was even standing and doing questionnaires outside Sainsbury's and talking to people. So that consultative work is part of this process.
And that's what the architects could be.
Yeah, they'll probably do some sketches, but I think the consultation, they'll use that to start the conversation, if you like, because a blank canvas is more difficult. I mean, the building's there. What's been discussed so far is knocking some walls down, make the kitchen bigger, moving it so you've got a bigger floor area, so you've got more use of the cafe. It's not just a cafe, it can be a community hub. And other things can go on there, so it doesn't have to close at 5 or 6. It can stay open in the evenings for communities. But that's the kind of thing that discussed with the project manager and MVB very loosely. And it's a very rough quote. You know, it's not. It's just been. I think this is what council wants to do.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Simon?
It does, yeah. So it's been. Yeah. Can I just quickly, really quickly, is there anything that we can do as a council, or maybe using features of the MIN to try and encourage sort of this stuff forward? So I'm rather struck by the points that Councillor Goodhart made, which is that actually I wasn't terribly aware of all of this. If I was a little cafe owner, I wouldn't know particularly the town council actually going to be bothered to do anything with Cricketers Cafe. You know, if you're an enterprise young cafe, you might want to be involved. But I don't really see, if I was a busy business owner, I wouldn't have the time that our more sort of well-versed members of the public have to search through a lot of documents and see what it is.
Interestingly, Simon, there have been 6 expressions of interest, I'm told, by outside bodies about the cafe, yes. So, which I'm sure the business review group would have spoken about.
Do we as a council feel that it's being adequately advertised in the community?
It's not advertised at all.
But
It can't be at the moment because the cylinders are gone, we've got no hot water, so that's the reason it's been delayed.
Not advertising tendency, but advertising that we want businesses to come forward and adopt this. I think that. Does anyone else get what I mean here? And that if I feel like I'm banging my head against a brick wall somewhat in that. If we want to bring the community on board, maybe a part of this we should resolve as a council to use them and to use our, the instruments available in this council to try and get this on board, because it might be there's someone who hasn't heard of this, has a fantastic idea, who could get on board early on and really transform that cafe. And it can't be Adrian and just 1 or 2 members of the public that are shouting and banging the drum on this. We need to try and bring people in, is what I'm saying.
I think you're absolutely spot on, Simon. I have no doubt that there's going to be an article in the next MIN that talks about the discussion that's happened this evening. And if we make this proposal that we're going to be, or if we pass this proposal, we're going to be bringing in the landscape architects to help us to draw up whatever the proposals will be. And we make it clear that we would welcome anyone participating in that discussion. And I would certainly hope that we would be pointing them towards the people who've already expressed an interest, plus anyone else who comes in. But I think that for me, what I don't want to do is find another reason to delay doing something. We've got to get on with actually doing this now. Yes, we've got to utilise all of the resources that are available. But we've got to look at what the options for what we can do with that building, find out what the proper costs are for what we can do with that building, because my big fear is that we could start spending real money, the 25,000, 50,000, 75,000, to do things that we haven't properly researched. Is this going to help us get to where we want to be? And we need to get that endpoint vision of what is it we're trying to achieve. I really do want to try and draw this together now. Are there any new points that have not been discussed before that anyone has to say? New points that have not been discussed before?
Not sure if they're new. I just wanted to clarify that SWOT analysis will be done alongside getting the architects in to have a look.
An essential part of.
Which is to form a proper business plan for the cafe. but not just the effects of, you know, what the people that will draw into the cafe, but the effect it will have on businesses and coffee shops in the town as well, because obviously we don't want to be competing against coffee shops in the town. So we need to know both ways. We all know we need a cafe there, but we want to make sure that it's done in the right way and we're not just moving business from the town up there.
Colin.
Yeah.
New point.
Well, I just wanted to say that while all this is going on, which sounds real progress, can we get the water fixed and get it open as something quickly? And as Councillor Cundiff pointed out,
It was agreed, we did agree some time ago that it would be open on a regular basis, just low key to get something moving there. Everything else that's been discussed, carry on, the architects, and all the stuff for slightly further ahead. But we could start using it within weeks, I would have thought, for something simple. Thank you.
Okay. So the water, I assumed that the water repair was going to go ahead as quickly as possible. So that's happening anyway. So the issue will be how quickly something else is in there. I mean, if we are going to have some bloke with his sweaty burger van come along, are they going to want to do a Saturday and Sunday morning and pick up the park run trade? I would have thought so. But that needs to be next.
Just to say, I was just going to say, how soon can we get something going? But I think you've just answered that.
Yeah. Right. Any new points from anybody?
Well, I need to say, if we can make sure it's not a sweaty burger van, that would be preferable. But I was all of them, I suggested Linda won't buy anything from it.
He's trying to pick back into your good books now. Damage was done, Phil. Right. So.
I just say, it seems like to me that decisions have already been made on the way it's going, really. You know, but it seems like to me you've already decided that we're going to have a cafe that's going to be run by the council. It seems
No, that's absolutely not. That's absolutely not what we're saying. One of the things I've just said, one of the things the consultant, when they come in, the architects will be doing is even talking to the people who've expressed an interest. What would they be looking for? What would they want? My point that I was making why we need to get these people in is that building is in, frankly, a pretty shocking state. Unless you want to have a quick fix, somebody in there, a little bit like it was with the Brownie Company, who did their best in challenging circumstances. But if you want to make it a really nice cafe, there's got to be a serious investment in it. You've got to have someone who knows what they're doing, come up with proper plans for it. Whether we're running it, whether somebody else out there is running it, whether a community group is running it, you've got to get that done. And what we're saying is these people will come in, they'll do some research, they come up with some ideas, they come up with some suggestions, come back to a special meeting of council in June to talk about all those options that they've come up with and which way we could go. And then we can take it from there. And I'm asking it and I think Phil accepted it, that we try and bring this to a conclusion by the autumn in order that we could get whatever it is underway. So next year, whatever council chooses to do is deliverable. Because if we don't get to that point by autumn, it won't be deliverable next year.
I'm just disappointed that, this hasn't gone out to the community and asked them what they actually want.
But that's what we're going to do. That's what we're paying for someone to come and do. Take it out to the community, do that consultative work. And the reason why I'm particularly, I'll be absolutely frank, I'm particularly keen that we pay for someone to come in and do that is because I don't believe we've got the capacity to do that in-house. So we'll talk about doing it, there'll be an article in the Melksham News and nothing will happen. We're paying someone to go out there who's done this stuff before, who knows what they're talking about, to ask the questions of people, to ask people what they want, to ask potential traders who would use it, what would they want, to come back with the results of that consultation to us as a council and say, here's what people have told us, here's the options you could do. I don't know what more we could do that actually would give us what people want.
A vote to get this all going.
Please. Right, okay. So I think I am going to take this to the vote now. So are we clear what we're voting on?
Are we voting to be having, so Councillor Ellis, are we going to be voting to be having something temporary this year to be working in there while we work out what we need on a permanent basis?
Yes.
Can that be part of the motion to make
That was the first part of the motion that Phil said earlier on.
Okay, so that's.
You want to repeat that part, Phil, so that there's absolute. And let's make sure we've got a written motion down here that we can read out, because I can see this will come back to bite later.
So it was to. Right, so it was to bring in a temporary cafe solution for this year and advance with a consultation and work to find out what would be a viable long-term solution.
And then my amendment to that was to keep them to bring in a temporary cafe solution for 2022.
Yeah.
But was to say, and to appoint MVB to with a budget of £5,000 to undertake a consultation exercise with users and service providers to identify potential solutions to be brought to a special meeting of full council in June.
Yeah. All that was in there.
Sorry, but I just ask for clarification when you say a temporary cafe solution.
Well, yeah, okay, so a caravan's coming, so we're not spending the money up front on sorting out the cafe, the 25,000 or whatever. Who's going to get on and sort out the hot water, but we're going to bring in someone to run a cafe from a caravan.
We don't know if it's such as a cafe or caravan. It might be that somebody like the Brownie company wants to operate one within the pavilion again.
Well, yeah,
but what we're saying is that we'll ensure that there is something.
There will be service being provided.
We don't know. There's no solution on the table tonight, sir. But what we are doing is saying, go and find us some temporary solution for this year. I can't tell you what, no one can tell you what that will be for this year, because we
find a temporary solution.
Right, comment.
Surely we agreed a temporary solution at a previous meeting that would be done on a Saturday. No, that was already in place.
It's going to be isn't it?
I don't know, but something was agreed.
Okay, I'm going to take this to the vote now. We've got a clear proposal on the table in front of us. I just think we really need to move forward on this. Yes. Okay, so, could I see all those in favour, please show? No, it's not. All those against, please show. And abstentions, please show. Brilliant. Okay. 9.1.2, we have the Assembly Hall on the agenda twice this evening. I really don't want to have the discussion twice, so I'm going to defer this until it comes up on the second item on the agenda. Otherwise, I'll leave it again. 9.1.3, building condition reports. So it's recommended by the Business Review Group that the remaining works are carried out as follows. Works for the Town Hall and Assembly Hall needed for health and safety reasons. Costs to be met from the unplanned maintenance budget. Works for the Melksham Independent News Building and the Art House Cafe needed for health and safety reasons. We have taken them back from the unplanned maintenance budget. And the remainder of the works are agreed to be put on hold for budgetary reasons. So,
Just to say, and again, I was at this, when we met and discussed this, we looked at the list of works that need doing, they've been fragmented, and then we felt that this was the order of hierarchy which the issue should be dealt with. So it was about driven by health and safety of the staff, and then making sure that the buildings that we met full needs fit for purpose, and then once those issues are dealt with, then we come on to the Amber Agreement priority.
okay, so.
And is it possible to have the spreadsheet for that?
Spreadsheet is the Excel spreadsheet, is that your, items?
No.
Yeah, this is the first one, second, yeah.
Push a query, so.
Well, just to be clear, you know, say which are the red ones.
Yeah, it was more about the priority being about health and safety, the place that people, place where people work, being a priority.
So which ones are those that we do?
So effectively, if I read this correctly, anything that's red in the reports, you're saying should be undertaken. Anything that's amber and green in the reports is put on ice.
It wasn't put on ice, it just wasn't as high up the.
Well, it's put on hold. That's the words that it says
It's
here.
done in that order.
And just repeat this was
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we haven't, and I'm not sure if that's something that is possible to instantly put together for tonight. I mean, I'll just repeat the request I said before, which is if there is something like that that you think is missing, if you ask in advance, then officers will try to produce, but that's been circulated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that only go out today. Okay. That's not good then. Okay. Appreciate it, Sue. Simon.
I take Councillor Mortimer's point, and I think that we as a council probably need to do some more work on the sort of long-term maintenance to realise a sustainable budget for that. As I understand, it's something that we have to do the health and safety database, so maybe we have a choice to do it.
No, I agree. I'll come to you soon, but my only question on this was actually this building conditions survey is 3 years old now. So I'm just concerned how many items that were there as amber, which were things that needed to be done within 5 years, are now actually going to be becoming red. So, but I think that ties in with what Simon asks, and it's whether actually we need to have a regular programme of having somebody come and undertake the survey maybe once every 3 years or something. I remember it was not expensive to have it done, and it was really informative to have. So I will come to you soon. I just wonder if on the back of this, well, we haven't had a proposal yet, so I'm happy to propose from the chair that we accept the recommendation of the working group. But I'd like to tag on to that we do commission a regular 3-yearly building conditions survey for all of the council property staff, so that we can keep these up to date because things change. And I'm really worried that we're using 3-year-old data for decisions now. I'm going to go to Sue and then I'll come to you, Simon.
Yes, John, I wasn't suggesting that we didn't do anything in red. My concern was that we ought to be doing something that's amber as well. Yes, I'm just thinking of stitching time, you know, you've got these things that need doing, and put them on hold, would it not be better to do them when it's best to do?
Patsy's added up the figures, it's 5,300.
We've got 69,000 in the pensions and
So the class pay is more than that, so. Anyway, Simon, we'll come to you. Did you have your hand up, Jackie? No, okay, sorry.
Councillor Rundle, I think it's a sterling idea, Councillor Jackie, so you really ought to be doing. Might I suggest we coincide every 4 years just for every election, so that every new council has the most up-to-date building condition report, but then also as councils come to set their budgets and look at what needs their requirements you're going to need over 1, 2, 3, 4 of our council term. It means that every new council has a realistic idea of what are the liabilities of our assets and do we have to think about a preset requirement that can realise the maintenance. I think would 4 years be, is that too long a time to do?
But Hugh for that is working on a 5-year building maintenance programme linked to a 5-year budget.
I think that council was really on the point to say that we should vote to have it ready. If we get into it just before every election, it means that it also means that every new council wouldn't be able to pass the buck and say, well, we didn't really know the state of the buildings until year 4.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. So,
we've got sorry, case and we're trying to get the answers. Yeah, I agree with what Simon. Everything was it doesn't cost much to do centres. Why don't you do them every couple of years so that we can actually?
I think that would probably be overkill. If we've got this is a really extensive piece of work. It's about 5,000, but it was I mean, I don't think anything had been done for a while. But it was really detailed, really excellent piece of work, which has really helped inform a 5-year buildings condition, like a maintenance programme. So there's going to be things that have to happen every single year, and things that within 2 or 3 years we need to probably start saving in the budget to have roofs done, and window frames and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do things that need to
work
every 2 years. I was thinking 4 years, there's going to be things that need to do in between.
Right.
Councillor Anderson, just wondering if it would be possible if we're having the full report done every few years, whether we could get just an annual update from the team, just telling us how things are going and what they consider to be issues that should be dealt with fairly sooner rather than later, so that we don't end up increasing our costs.
Okay, so to move this on, thank you, Graham. To move this on, I would like to propose that we accept the recommendations from the Business Review Working Group, that we ask the clerk or the, sorry, I can't remember what your job title, head of operations, whoever, to commission at the earliest opportunity an update on the building conditions survey, because I think there is it is quite long out of date. And then from that, so we will have an idea. What I'd hate to do is say, hey, let's spend a month doing this bit, which was an amber, because get this done and suddenly find there's some rent we weren't aware of when we spent the budget. Let's get a survey done. Then can I suggest that we ask, because Hugh is putting together his 5-year plan, we ask Hugh to come back with his 5-year plan in due course with a recommendation about how regular he thinks it would be helpful to have this report. Because I'm not a chartered surveyor, so my guess of 3 years only was because the stuff that tends to come in the report says 0 to 3 years and 3 to 5. But it might be better for it to come in other ways. But the report that comes to us does say this so often we will have an external person, chartered surveyor, come and check the stuff. And build in, I think, the excellent suggestion from Councillor Ellis. We almost have a State of the Nation report that comes to council once a year on all of our stock, giving us an indication on what and that would bring to us things like the broken hot water system at the pavilion and all the rest of it, because we just know about it.
I'll second.
Okay, proposal seconded. Can I see all those in favour? And I think we're back to everybody again. Thank you very much, folks. Right, the next item is strategic plan. It's 25 to 10. This is a huge thing for us to take and to agree on. And I'm really not certain we have time left this evening to cover this. I hate deferring, because we last talked about this, I think, in June, when we had the array day to look at it. I don't know about how others feel. I would be uncomfortable saying we're going to adopt our 15-year or whatever year it is, 5-year strategic plan on the back of what could be no more than 10 minutes debate. Simon.
I agree with I would vote to that effect, but can I just really quickly say that I don't think this is anywhere near ready to adopt. There's typos, there's question marks, there's.
It has been out to all members for feedback, and I've had feedback from one or two.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. It wasn't for that. We are aware that this needs, honing, but I'm really conscious that we're going to be a year down the road before this has been adopted, and it's just an effort to try and move it forward. The actual overall aim for this is, once this is agreed, and we've had more input from councillors, is to come up with an action plan for each of the committees. So at every single committee meeting, an action plan will go, and the progress of everything that council has resolved will be tracked, and it will be on the agenda for each meeting as well. So this is just a public document with the main headlines, as I see it. There could be a lot more detail in this, but this is something that we want the public to use. You're, as a council, telling the public what your aim is, your vision, and what you're trying to achieve.
But that's great, thank you. And I don't want to leave while all council usually is some
So
Thanks so much. I think if we get everybody gets responded, question marks and some things. Yeah. If we can all sort of pull that in.
Okay, I'm going to cut across because I want us to move on because of time. I think we're all clear we're not going to adopt this tonight. What I think I would like us to do, though, is agree what way forward on adopting it is, otherwise it just goes back into the pontification tray again. Personally speaking, I think the initial Saturday session that we had, when we talked about what we would want to see in the strategic plan, was a very productive session when we could all get behind, have a chat, talk about it, think about it. So I think doing another one of those would be a very good idea, and I think we could finish it in one Saturday, because if you look at the strategic plan, can I just turn your page over to, if you look at it, effectively what you've got on each of the main areas that we have all agreed on is you've got some sort of major topics and then sort of action points against each of them, and I think we could spend some time all looking at and agreeing the major topics and then agreeing the actions against them. And that at least means that all of the councillors can take ownership of what's in there, rather than, I mean, at the moment, it's so long since we did it, I can't remember all of the points that were made. And secondly, I think that, it's very hard to take ownership of it as it stands. So that would just be my suggestion as what the way forward is, because otherwise we're going to be talking about working groups going on for however long, who is involved, who isn't involved, so on and so forth. And it's another 12 months down the line, and I'm just desperate we don't see that. Jackie, tell me why I'm wrong.
No, I'm just saying that, just pointing out that because of the current climate with price cost of living and everything going up, some of us have to work so many hours that we don't have a Saturday off, Saturday, I only get Sunday morning off, and that's only because I regularly go to church, and my company will give me off. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to attend.
I think this is the challenge that there will always be. because getting a time when, or even tonight when it's in the agenda in our diaries from a year ago, we haven't got all 15 members in attendance. There will never be a time when we would find a time when everybody can be in attendance. So all we could do a doodle poll, we could try and go out and find all the clerk and try and find a time that best suits. But of course, people who do have to work weekends means they get their time off in the week. People who are working during the week won't have the time off then, and we'll never get everybody. I'm not sure that there's an answer that will satisfy everyone. I wish there was. It would make life a hell of a lot easier for all of us. I'm not sure that there's a solution that will satisfy. I'm just suggesting that rather than kicking this into the long grass again, which is what I fear will happen, we try and find something to definitively bring it to a close. And setting aside a block of time doesn't mean that anybody who can't make that day is excluded, because there's no reason why they can't give input into that. There's no reason why they can't talk to other people who would be there and ask them to raise points on their behalf and all the rest of it. But I'm not sure we will ever find a time when we have adequate time to see that through to conclusion, when we will all be able to be present. If someone can find that time, though, congratulations. So, how do people feel? If I make that proposal, is someone willing to second it and we take that forward? Right, okay, pick someone. So the proposal then is that we defer this, but ask the clerk to organise another sort of open day for us to come in and spend the day working to bring this to conclusion. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Wonderful, thank you very much. Environment, we've just got to note the meeting of the Environment Climate Group. Proposed second.
Can I make a point on that, please, Chair? I'm sorry, it will be a brief point. Just to note, the Environment and Climate Working Group, as in some of the other groups, working groups, hasn't been seen on the public agenda, isn't seen in public. It started in public just on the 3rd of March. There's another one on the 23rd of March, so can I say in public it is happening that day? I'm not sure I'll chair that committee whether we actually allow the public into that meeting. Public members present, what is the situation?
Working groups aren't public meetings. But it's the discretion of that working group if it wanted to turn around and say it wants to be, but that's not for us to, that's for the working group. But they're not a committee, so all the rules that apply to committees don't apply to a working group. Normally, a working group would meet behind closed doors. The main reason for that isn't to exclude people, but it's actually to give a freedom for members on that working group to be able to put in I was going to say not left wing, what's the word? But left field, that's what I was looking for. Ideas out of the box without fear of suddenly being told that.
Things they don't appear in the middle.
All councillors' blocks.
That's right.
Yeah, but it is for that working group. Simon.
This is a cause. I'm sorry, Councillor Brummer. This is a cause that has been sort of championed for some time. So just to clarify, if we vote on the working group to have, for example, our agenda and the fact that the meeting is happening on our calendar of meetings on the Town Council website, are you saying that would then mean that would happen? Because Councillor has raised this a number of times, and personally as well, I can go onto the calendar of meetings and that's where I draw, my.
There's no reason why a working group agenda can't be on the agenda. It's attendance at the meeting is the issue.
The agenda is now on there. The notes have been published in these notes, which therefore make them available to the public. So I think the question I was asking there is, can we get the public more involved in what is a very big matter here? I'm going to defer to the chairman.
That's a matter for our.
You've got a day coming up. Thank you. I think that will be a good opportunity to speak. A good opportunity to speak with the public. The climate action plan, we're going to publish that fully, because that will engage people. But if the working group feels, as a working group, that they would welcome the public to attend, then they can just let me know. We can go to council and we just approve that. It's not set in stone, but as the town mayor said, Councillor Hubbard, there are times when a working group's really good. And for instance, we're going to have a budget working group this year, and that's really so that members can put all the ideas at once on the table and then disseminate them into a budget and not feel as if, oh, if I say that, the public are going to think we're going to deliver that or we're going to cut that. It's that kind of scenario, whereas I don't think the climate working group is that.
Exactly.
Can I suggest this is something, so Councillor Raby, can I suggest, please, Chair, that we take this back to our next meeting rather than discussing it now? So I don't think it's
Absolutely. Yeah. I would urge you to exercise caution on doing it though, because I think that you will want to be able to discuss things without fear of somebody saying, well, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z, when actually that's not what. And a reminder, of course, that a working group cannot make decisions. It can only make recommendations. Okay, so. Well, it's. Is it a new item on the working group? Environment working group?
Councillor Mortimer, I'm just saying that we are having a climate day, so that's a chance for you.
Yeah, the clerk mentioned that just now. Okay, so can I see all in favour of noting the minutes from the Environment Climate Working Group? Okay, neighbourhood plan. So to receive an update from town council representatives on the group. Simon, do you want to give us an update on?
I'm happy to I have given the council an update. I wasn't. Councillor Raby was that.
Yeah, so Councillor Raby, basically working on the next part of the strategy, looking at the future of the neighbourhood plan, working alongside Place. Yeah, that's where we are. The next meeting will be in a couple of months, is it? Yeah, okay. Just about the future of progressing it.
Yes, Simon and Safi have said work on the review has begun, and the reason we've gone into review so quickly is because the legislation has changed on the 5-year housing land supply. With the neighbourhood plan, when it was made, you had to file a 5-year protection or the length of the plan against the principal authority who might not be able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. That's now changed, and after 2 years of having a neighbourhood plan in place, you are no longer protected. And one of the main reasons of doing a neighbourhood plan is so that you can actually control and direct growth in your community. The themes for the review are the following: local green space, implications of the bike paths, the town centre, the master plan, environmental issues, implications of the Melton Canal link, and housing site allocation. Now, it would be really nice, and I think it would be really good if we could have some town councillors on those working groups. Safi's already agreed to go on the town centre master plan working group. I will follow this up with an email, but I think it's really important that we have councillor representation on these groups as well as working with the public who are on the neighbourhood plan steering group. We'll be embarking upon a housing needs assessment, and that will be done by the community in association with ACON, who will provide technical support, and that will be linked to the Ross Melton's demographic profile. So the housing needs assessment is not about setting housing numbers. That can conflict with the core strategy, emergent local plan, but also what government sets up that each community needs to take. This is more about what kind of type of housing the community of Melton and the out of Melton without need going forward for its community. But I'll follow this up with an email tomorrow, remind you of the groups in that email, and plead for some members to come forward to work on some other groups.
Thank you. Can I just ask for clarification from our reps who are on the neighbourhood plan? I understand that there was something that was going to the neighbourhood plan about a planning application in the parish.
Yeah, so.
Sounds like fun. Sorry, if I can just finish the question, because what I was concerned about was that there was a request that the neighbourhood plan paid for somebody to argue the case of why we shouldn't be going forward. And I'm just wanting a reassurance I've misheard that the neighbourhood plan shouldn't be funding a planning matter.
No, councillor Lee. No, what was asked was I think it was was it £500?
Yeah, for an expert to assist Melksham without comment and people
Correct, and discuss that actual, so this is basically because there's been an appeal against an injection of a plan application in Melksham that. However, this appeal is not about the planning application, the appeal is about testing the neighbourhood plan. So we felt that actually, as the neighbourhood plan affects both Melksham Town Council, Melksham Wood House, so it's very important to both councils. Melksham have asked, would Melksham Town help to contribute towards the expert advice? I think it's £500. There's a discussion back and forwards about 50-50, 30-70. I personally felt strongly we should be looking at 50-50 because at the end of the day, the neighbourhood plan does affect both of us. And actually, if this appeal walked down the neighbourhood plan, that does potentially put us in a very difficult position. It's being seen as a nationwide kind of a national test case. It is really important.
But it's a parish matter.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a joint council matter.
So if this succeeds, there's not really much point in us continuing on with it. It is really important, and it is a Melksham neighbourhood plan, not a parish neighbourhood plan. It's about bringing things together, and yeah, I feel very strongly about this too. The developers are planning on to fight this, and if they do succeed, there is not much point in us carrying on with this.
My concern comes from the fact that when, for instance, there was a hint of a suggestion that Melksham would actually contribute towards the cost of things like places for people, a piece of work the town was commissioning. They were very blunt. If the town wants to do that, that's for the town to do. It's nothing to do with the parish. It doesn't affect the parish. And here we're now seeing the parish with an application for a planning application in the parish, say, but it's not. Let's not debate it because it's not on the agenda. But I just wanted to raise it as a real quick concern. I think that with the neighbourhood plan, the parish is all too quick to say whether the town should contribute, but we don't ever see that come back the other way.
Sorry, councillor, it is not the appeal. It's not actually about the planning application, it is about the neighbourhood plan, it's testing the neighbourhood plans. Can we please make it very clear?
But the appeal is against the planning decision. They may be using the neighbourhood plan as a reason for it.
That brings that down. And so this is it's been reviewed as a national test case. I think it really is important to protect this and for safety.
Right, okay, so we note the neighbourhood plan. Do we need to vote on it? Okay. Where's the motions from councillors? Sue?
Oh yeah, this is one for the where we are with this yet, because we don't.
Well, only because until the TRO on the East Mid, council don't know exactly how much money they're expecting to raise from charges, but there isn't a Wiltshire Council policy in place yet about leasing parking charges. If there is a policy, and when they do get, when it's leasing disabled base specifically, so if once the TRO is through, a decision is taken to put in place a policy about leasing disabled base to towns and parishes, then that will take some time in order for it to be built and prepared and to go through cabinet to be agreed. So all I was going to say is at the moment, I would put this on hold and wait until there's a policy in place.
Can I suggest an amendment to you? So I just want to move things on. Suggest an amendment you might want to accept on that then, which is that we ask the clerk, and council could resolve to ask the clerk to ask Wiltshire Council that as soon as they have some form of policy coming forward for charges and the opportunity for councils to lease disabled parking bays, that information is passed to Manchester Town Council at the earliest opportunity, because the council would be interested in taking up the opportunity of leasing those parking spaces subject to cost. But we would like to receive the information in a timely manner so that a decision can be made by the council before any charges started being made.
I just asked about the GRN and is that all gone through? Just that so the centre will have to respect the consultation of that against the decision.
It's got to go through consultation first, so I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't say what's going to happen. But the decision is taken by the council that's in charge. With badge holders. It will go through consultation, but then whatever comes out of that will obviously inform the council to get policy together that the town would be interested in would be best position for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that caution sort of like these cases that you
cautious around. They're spending a lot of money. They are spending. Yeah, and whether we do a redemption scheme, I think we spent about 400 quid in 9-10 months, something like that. So it's very vocal issue. It's very emotive. People are very vocal. But I think when you look at the evidence, people have only so far paid back 200 quid in 10 months. I question whether they're going to spend it.
Yeah, it's not really attractive.
Okay, I'm getting it because folks, we can't keep backwards and forwards in this. Are you happy to accept that we right? Okay, so with that proposal, okay, all those in favour that we get the clerk to write to? Okay, and after that, I'm now mindful that it's 1 minute to 10, and we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, 5 substantive items of business to conduct, which we're clearly not going to do before 10 o'clock. And if you're going to do it post 10 o'clock, it won't be with me in the chair. So I was briefly trying to look on, but I couldn't find on ModGov any dates for April. But I was going to suggest that we call a special after whenever the next dev is, which is normally the shortest of the 4. No, next week's the annual town meeting. 2 weeks.
What time is the meeting? 6 o'clock. So.
No, the annual town meeting's at 7, but that's a full meeting, isn't it? You've got people doing presentations.
No, it's just we do this before. We have an hour and a half, say, before.
I think people will really struggle with it. I would have to publish the agenda today. Or tomorrow. Sorry, tomorrow, yes. Yes, on 4th of April. So, at which point then I'm going to draw the meeting to a close. I've never seen in any. It's I will be. Joy. I had children's on Wednesday last week, just to start off again. That's all right, and they'll behave themselves.